Well, howdy, y'all. I reckon it's time to welcome y'all to Roundtable Live for August 18th, 2017. I'm BaerTaffy, joined by Rock Lee, Smile, Mathis Games. Oh, you don't like it? Come on. What's the matter with it?
It was like too loud or something.
just too much.
I had to boost myself a little bit.
Handle all at once.
Folks told me I was not quite as loud as the bunch, so I had to give myself a little oomph, but
that's fair.
Hey, I just want to wake you up. Welcome, everybody, to Roundtable Live for August 18th, 2017. Thanks for joining us. It's the West of Loathing theme, actually. That's what's going on.
No,
with that.
I got it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're into the game. You're very into it.
I am. It's really good, man. I've been having a good time with it. But
So I've heard.
We've got that to talk about on today's show, along with a bunch of other video games. We got Contradiction, which is a full video experience. Rock Lee Smile checked out. I'm really curious, actually, to hear about this, because the reviews are like stellar for it too. Apparently, it's
everyone
really good.
loves that game. I don't think I've found a single detractor yet, which is especially strange considering it's an FMV game, which are usually very easy to hate.
Yeah. Like I have no idea what to expect out of this, but I'm excited to hear you talk about it. We're going to touch a little tiny bit on the Path of Exile expansion, The Fall of Oriath. We don't have a lot of collective experience, but we just want to acknowledge its existence. Observer will follow that up, along with Sonic Mania, not the PC release. We'll probably circle back around to that once these guys have had a chance to check it out on Steam, but it is available on the consoles at the moment, and I've already beaten it because I love it. It's really, really good. Darkwood after that, along with Nidhogg 2, Hellblade, and as I mentioned, West of Loathing. Lots of games to talk about. Of course, we did miss last week, so we got an extra full docket of games to discuss today, which is exciting. But before we begin that, it's unfortunate that none of this matters because AI is taking over the world. So, yeah. We had a good run, but OpenAI has discovered a way to create sentience, basically, and they've started off by making them play Dota 2 and beat the pros. It's pretty honestly like insane that they've done this. Like we know AI exists in video games, but like professional level Dota 2 player AI, isn't that a little creepy?
Let's bring it down. It was a 1v1.
Yes.
There was no 5v5. There's not like 10 people dynamics going on. And it was only with one hero that they were able to make it work
so
with.
that's fair. That's a valid point. That it was like a mirror match too, right? I think they had.
Yeah, it was a mirror
pros
match,
on
mid lane,
only.
1v1.
All right, so there's a few caveats, I guess. It's not.
And they
quite...
fed it like 200 plus games in the matter of like 2 days or whatever is how it learned.
Because it like trained against itself, basically, right? Where it was just like starting off, I guess, just at the fountain, just sitting there wondering what to do, and then eventually adding on like little bit by little bit, realizing, oh, I can go get gold from here. Oh, I can get stronger items, all this little tiny stuff until it's dominating.
Well, it's not that it was like realizing what to do, right? It was like taking Lily's path of resistance to get to what it needed. Like, what was that? Okay, I'm like confused by the whole premise, right? So did this thing have access to like the back end of the game, or was it doing it directly through the user interface?
I think the interpretation is that it's going through. I mean, it needs to be able to access the back end to issue commands without like a person doing it, I guess. But like it's playing the game, and then it's using the feedback that it gets from the game in order to like tailor its performance. So it tries things, kind of like reaching out in the dark at first, and then it finds like, oh, okay, this thing worked better than this thing, so we're gonna like iterate on this and then try random stuff from there. And eventually, like by doing that, it kind of like feels its way through this maze and figures out the parameters that work for it.
Once they start working together, though, will you be scared? Is that when we should worry about the future of the human race, is when they can actually work together in Dota 2?
Yes, that is my fear.
Well, I mean,
because they'll be ahead of humans at that point, right? Because we sure as shit haven't figured that out.
This is such like a weird topic of conversation for a video game podcast to start on. But like a computer beating a human being at something that involves mechanical skill and timing and execution is not that stunning. It is amazing that they were able to build it. Like, that is crazy.
It's like a step above Deep Blue, at least.
Oh, I mean, well, Deep Blue was in like 1998 or something like that. I hope it's like 1,000 steps.
I set the bar a little low there.
Yeah,
I guess.
but like the greater task is to give it the same kind of ability for human beings that human beings have to like solve abstract puzzles. To look at something and be like, like Dota 2 5v5 is an abstract puzzle. To be like, why am I losing? How do I like make myself not lose? And to solve that versus like I can last hit better than a human brain.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily that
more.
difficult.
I'll be definitely more interested when an entire AI team can pick and counterpick and like off the fly pull a team of Dota 2 heroes out of like over 100 heroes in a pool.
Yeah,
and then execute a strategy on the fly when the human team does something unexpected.
We're previewing TI-12. Honestly, I think is what's going on here, because like it's going to get to a point where, you know, like how it used to be. I don't remember if this was like a particular country, but Ryan, you might be able to help me out here. There was like a time where there was one hockey team, I think it was the Canadian hockey team, was like so dominant that they just like auto-buyed to the final round of some event, and then the other teams just competed to see who got to play against Canada or one of the teams.
It's a hell of a compliment.
I mean, it sounds insulting, but that's kind of like what the current state of international women's hockey is just like,
it might have been that actually.
Canada and the U.S. meet in the finals unless like there's a historic upset somewhere along the way every time. So,
but I'm saying like what's going to happen here is we've got the human teams competing right now, but 5-10 years down the road, it's all going to be like, okay, we'll see what the best human team is, and then we'll send them against the AI team that just wipes the floor with everybody else, and that's like a show match at the end to see if they can maybe win a little bonus money.
The minute the AI can respond to like multiple fountain hookings in a game, that's when they have it. That's when you know they've ascended.
Mm-hmm.
The other problem is like if it ever happens that the 5v5 AI can beat the best human team, then it's over, because that is by like almost definition the worst the AI will ever be from that point onwards. Yeah. So once that happens, that's like a watershed moment in AI. I think not specifically with Dota necessarily, but like you're like, oh, not only are they better than us, but they're better than us at our best, and they're only going to get better from here. Like this could be the ground floor for, you know, AI super intelligence or something like that.
Elon Musk is trying to freak us out, man. That's why I'm saying all this stuff. We got to be terrified. They're going to take over.
Is the premise that this is mostly exciting because it was retrofit to Dota? Because I played HOTS with Ryan and Sin last night, and we played against AI.
Yeah.
No, see, that's what I'm saying. Is like, obviously AI exists within video games. This is not a revolutionary point here.
Yeah, but I'm like Google DeepMind as the like medium tier bots though.
Why is it because it's like a MOBA that it's really exciting that there's AI? I don't really get that part.
It's because it beats the best human player, basically, or one of the best human players. Yeah.
Yeah, beat Dendy.
Yeah, like there's nothing remarkable about AI fighting against you in a video game. I agree with that. But
if you play like against the highest tier bots in Heroes of the Storm, they're okay, but they're like pretty bad, especially if you coordinate. So like for a self-learning AI to get to the point where just on its own it figured out how to beat one of the best players in the world is pretty amazing.
I'll say I'm not going to be thoroughly impressed until I see a bot taking on players 1v1 in Rocket League. That's going to be like, that's going to blow my fucking mind once I see a bot fly up and go for an aerial. That's going to be sick.
I want to see a bot learn how to beat the Witness by itself.
Okay. We all have our own like
abstract learning.
Our own analog for this. This is great.
I can tell you straight up, like a bot beating Isaac doesn't strike me as very difficult.
Probably not.
But it would go to the first item room, like, is this a good item? No, hold R, reset.
Yeah, exactly. Like
in the Witness, though, it would have to learn how to like function with abstract thought about like, okay, this puzzle I need to learn what sounds are and that I should associate a higher tone with this line, right? Like it's extremely out there.
Yeah. No,
compared to the call and response of like, I hit a thing, I got a thing.
I think that might be like the answer to sentience, actually, is if we can get an AI that can play through the Witness, it will just become self-aware at that point, and we'll have achieved humanity.
All those weird speeches in the Witness will help it achieve.
It's really going to awaken it. It's going to stay woke.
Watch Google DeepMind watching that video of Ray Kurzweil speaking about quantum superentanglement or something.
I don't want to do that.
Anyway. That OpenAI stuff, it was kind of wild. I like seeing things like that. Like I get fascinated by stories like this because I was the kind of kid who was like lining up an AI character that I created in Virtua Fighter and just watching for hours as it fought other AI opponents and got stronger. You know, like I was totally into that shit.
I did stuff like that too. I did that with DBZ, the fighting game, the third one on the Wii, Budokai Tenkaichi 3.
Yeah,
I would just create like two teams of 5 of like good guys versus bad guys, and then watch it like an anime.
Yeah,
Rob still does that with Madden.
Yeah,
no, dude. Like, there's this, I'm sure some people have played it. There's this browser-based NBA, or not NBA, but it's like a basketball management simulator game. So, like, I've totally gotten involved with that, too. Where it's all text-based, but I just there's, like, that emergent storytelling. There's that phrase again, where you just see all these different text names that will have this illustrious career throughout 15 years as you sim seasons over and over, and you get to watch all these people have their stories develop. It's great. Anyway,
that's what life is like.
Yeah,
if we were just like flattened images,
just
flipping past.
Life is just all about admiring the achievements of better men. That's for me anyway. Via basketball GM Sims.
There's a great Game of Thrones reference I could have just made there, but I'm just gonna.
I was trying to make it a Thrones thing. That's like one of I think that there's like 4 things you can say from Game of Thrones that won't get you, thrown on the spoiler crucifix.
Not if Austin's here.
Right.
Which,
then there's none.
Ooh, Ned Stark is a character.
Oh,
spoilers!
Say it, man.
Dan!
Jeez. 2 actresses. All right. Off to the races. Let's start talking about video games. Nicholas, please tell me all about Contradiction. Spot the liar.
You set me up for a 3-stack of Nick-only features, but did you notice?
Did I? Oh, you know what? One of them's a mini, though, so it's like a Nicholas sandwich where we've got like the appetizer sort of
sandwich
in the 2 Nick slices of bread there. So I think it's going to be good. It'll be
I
good.
want to know what meats go on a Nicholas sandwich.
You're going to tell us.
All right. First meat, Contradiction meat. Let's talk about that. So, Contradiction is an FMV mystery detective game featuring a very enthusiastic and wonderful character named Inspector Jenks. He's a man with the most emotive face that maybe I've ever seen, and I believe he should be the next Doctor in Doctor Who.
Wow.
He's a very entertaining man. Yeah, he's actually fantastic. So it's really, really overly like super corny, but in a fun way, not in a way that makes you, oh, this is stupid. Every character has like a lot going on that you kind of want to tease out. So the premise is there was this woman named Kate Vine, and she was found dead at the start of the story. And essentially you're investigating whether or not this was a suicide or a murder or what happened. And you get about, I think it's like 5 in-game hours to uncover this mystery. They never exactly explain why you have a time limit. You're just told that. And it's not a real time limit. It's just this is how the game proceeds in sections.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So you do a certain amount of the story, and then it becomes 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock, and so on and so forth. So you go around the town, meeting people, establishing character between the characters and how they interact. You interview them, and you can basically just question them based on objects that you find. And you start out very simple. You have Kate's picture and her driver's license that you found on the side of the lake. And you do find new objects throughout the game that are just kind of around because of plot points. So you'll take the driver's license, you'll show it to somebody like Simon, and he'll go, oh, I don't know why are you showing me this? And then you'll have a back and forth about it. And it'll record like the top 3 or 4 bullet points of each one of those interviews as like the contradiction options. So as you get further into the game, you can kind of tease apart what you feel to be the narrative that's going on, sort of like a Phoenix Wright thing. And you pull out a quote, and then you put it against another quote of that same person. And if you spot a contradiction between the two, that triggers the plot to proceed forward and opens up a new thing.
Okay.
So that's the central premise. The game's about maybe 5 or 6 hours long. I was a bit slow, so it might be a little faster than that. And requires a good degree of attention given to everything that they're saying. There are a couple of moments that are actually like extremely obtuse to figure out what they want you to click on. And there's also a few moments that are like, this is obviously a contradiction, but you didn't have time to record footage for it. So you just get frustrated and go, oh, well, I guess they didn't have one for that. I wish they would have at least acknowledged them, like just have it turn blue or something instead of just fade away like the usual ones that aren't contradictions. But I had a fantastic time with this game. I think everybody should play it or at least experience the first hour of it to see the characters, because I think you'll be hooked just based on that. It is like a 3-year-old game at this point, 2 or 3 years old. So it's not new. I just happened to find out about it recently and on a whim decided to play it on one of my Friday night streams and feel like everybody enjoyed it. So I highly recommend Contradiction. Probably the best game I've played recently.
Man, yeah, you said that it was like probably the most fun game out of all. You played quite a few games. Obviously
the last 2 weeks were a long week of many games. Many games that I had middling responses about, to be honest. Contradiction was almost always positive.
Nice. And I imagine, like, you said that, you know, who I imagine to be the main character, the detective guy, he was
Jenks,
obviously really strong in his performance. But this obviously seems like the kind of game that really banks heavily on the performances of the actors. Is it, like, are they all just as good?
I don't know if they're all just as good, but they all did a great job in general. I just feel like because Jenks is the guy you spend the most time with, and he's just so over-the-top enthusiastic, you just kind of have to love him. And that carries the game to a large degree, because there are a good swath of moments that you just don't have anything in particular going on while you're looking for the next interaction. So you're just kind of like, all right, well, let's wait for a little hit of endorphins the next time we get to hear Jenks talk.
Makes sense.
I mean, in general, the game is well produced. Like the way they set it up visually, like the choreography, the setup for the way the camera works and all, it's very polished. The UI, though, like when you first boot it up, looks pretty not great. Thankfully, that is not indicative of the overall game experience. The UI is very bare bones and minimal. It gets the job done, but it looks sort of like, okay, this could be like a default Unity template for a game, but it's fine. It's, acceptable.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay, yeah, like this is, man, I didn't even remember, I don't think we talked about this when this came out, did we? I don't think we even, like, acknowledged it.
I don't think I knew it happened when it came out.
Yeah.
I was unaware that it existed until about 3 weeks ago.
Is this like, is this a genre that people are trying to revitalize? Because it seems like it would be, like, maybe even a little more expensive to make.
Night Trap just came out on Steam.
Oh, right, yeah, we're talking about that.
Oh, heck
The original.
That's a game I'm, like, way more...
I know what I'm doing tonight.
I'm way more into the idea of Night Trap than I am into the actual execution of Night Trap.
Yeah,
that's like the original FMV, like, puzzle-solving game.
Yeah. I
It's
love that
with puzzles.
like the first image result for it is its Sega CD32X box art, which, oh man, there's a throwback for you.
Have you guys played it?
No.
I've never played Night Trap, but
it's trash. Like, it's awful.
Yeah,
back in the era of, like,
terrible.
Angry reviewers being the #1 content producers on the internet. I've probably seen, like, I don't know, 300 or 400 reviews of this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't expect anything other than ironic laughter to this game. There's not much content to it. But still, it could be fun to appreciate how far we've come. Because this is an example, Contradiction is an example of a good FMV game. And I also played, after that, that Dr. Decker game. I can't remember the full title. There's something Insanity, Infectious Lunacy of Dr. Decker or something. Another FMV game about where you're basically a psychologist interviewing people. And that one was not nearly as fun. Like, not even in the same ballpark. They set up a very different premise, though, in that one, where essentially you have to type questions. And that premise by itself kind of is a flawed idea. The concept being that you have to basically grab keywords from what they said last and then regurgitate them back to them. So essentially the whole game is you listening to them talk, watching the subtitles for italics, then typing those italics back into the text prompt, waiting for the next thing to hit. There's not much to that. There's not a lot of logic or deduction. It's mostly just following rails, whereas Contradiction, you have to think somewhat about it.
Yeah, the infectious madness of Dr.
That's
Decker.
the one, yeah, I played it about 4 hours, and I didn't want to keep going. Chat told me, though, that it gets better. It's just they said it was like a 4-hour tutorial at the beginning, and I was not really into that.
Oh, geez, yeah. Well, how long is it then? That's
I guess like maybe 7 or 8 hours. It seemed like I was about 38% or something through it in the 4 hours. What else? There was another FMV game. Oh, Her Story, which I intend to play. I know that's a bit on the older side too, but I've gotten on a run of these, I suppose, now.
Yeah, Mathis, you played that, right? Her Story?
Yeah, we talked about that when it came out. I really, really liked that game. It was a really interesting take on the FMV game because there was a lot of, like, manual note-taking I needed to do and a lot of cross-referencing and, like, deduction stuff like Nick was talking about that made that game a lot more enticing.
So we have two very good examples of recent well-made FMV games. So I suppose the scene is alive. It exists still. People are making stuff in it.
Yeah.
I want a sequel to Contradiction, and the developer said that they're willing to do one, but they didn't anticipate quite the degree of work that was going to go into it.
Yeah,
so it's going to require a lot of funding, he said, for this to happen.
Like, you're making basically a movie and a game, aren't you? Which that seems like it's just a hell of a lot more work.
At face value, people assume it's kind of a simple idea for how to make it because essentially you're taking video clips and putting them together. But there's a lot of parallel running threads that you have to account for and different variables if you get something in the wrong order or you get something a little off. It's got to make sense. And the continuity for this game was pretty on. So, they figured that out. I believe there's a capable developer, and I'd love to see a sequel to it.
Dope.
Very highly recommended.
There you go. Contradiction. It's out on Steam. It's $10. And yeah, we did make ourselves a tasty Nick sandwich here. So let me get the the condiment of Path of Exile out of the way here. Let me hear your thoughts on the Fall of Oriath real fast.
Okay, so I only did play a little bit of this, so I'm probably not the most qualified here to speak on it, but I am an ARPG fan at least, so I have background to reference. The premise of Path of Exile is very much take Diablo 2 and modernize it to some degree. It's got an Estus system instead of health potions, which I appreciate. And it has a very, very, very elaborate skill tree. Maybe the most elaborate skill tree I've ever seen in a video game. Not that I intend for that to come across like it's necessarily daunting. They're very careful about putting you in a position where you only have so many choices at any given time. And there's even a search function if you want to look for a specific skill. But if you want to really take time and get into this, I imagine there's about infinite builds you could make in characters. You're not locked into a particular class, which is very nice. It's also a free-to-play game, so you don't need to pay anything for it if you don't want to. It's high quality. It's very well done. And if you're a fan of ARPGs, I think you'll probably have no trouble getting into it. I've been told, and also to some degree relate to the idea that the beginning is a bit slow. And I guess when you're getting kind of used to the fact that there isn't currency in this game and everything's sort of done on a barter system, that might be a little off-putting at first. But if you stick with it a couple hours or you go in with a friend and play multiplayer, I don't think you'll have any real issues with that. The one issue that I did have, and this is one that I don't even know if I'm allowed to have a moral high horse about because it's really kind of, it's pedantry really to come up with this problem, but it's got a very large range of paid DLC, which it's a free-to-play game, so this is how they make their money. I shouldn't really be upset about that. But there are cosmetic items that you can pay up to $500 real money for. And I personally am of the belief that I want to be able to get all the cool cosmetic items in the game somehow. If that means I have to pay at the beginning, I'm actually okay with that. I would have no problem paying $50 for Path of Exile. It's a very high-quality game. I just don't really like that there's this far of a swing to the cosmetics. If it was maybe a $30 thing, I could maybe justify it, but $500? And I know that's extreme. They're not mostly that expensive. But there are a range between $10 and up to $500. What do you think?
I mean, it's like you said. It's
microtransactions, not DLC. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't really mind at all, honestly. Like when there's those exorbitant price tags on in-game items. Like I think at this point I've been able to just set that aside in my brain and say like that doesn't affect me. There are people who are going to buy this, and I have to be okay with that. Like that's just the way it is.
I would just much prefer there was a secondary option where I could pay at the front and not have those exist.
Like that undermines their whole system. Like if they had something you could buy for $500, or you could buy the game
30, I know.
up front for $50 and just get it through in-game grinding, they would never. Like it's conflating two systems.
And they clearly
I know.
We've been talking before the show about the fact that you can look at the top sellers on Steam and see the revenue leaders, and Path of Exile is always up there. So I mean, obviously, this is working for them. That's kind of why they want to do it.
I guess I just mean like $500 is fucking greedy is the thing. Like, why does it ever need to be that expensive?
Yeah.
If you want to support them, I have no problem with that. But like, do it in smaller increments that add up to that amount. Or should be one thing.
Or get the really cool $500 helmet, right?
Here's where I become like the classic, devil's advocate asshole in this situation. But like, What if they had something that was like $10,000 in the game? Like, for me, it just seems like if you don't want it, then don't buy it. Is my perspective in a game that was, if it was like a Shadow of War situation where it's $80 and then they've got these like Skinner box loot crates that are real money.
Yeah,
like,
that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, I have like a little bit more of an ethical kind of issue with that. But in a free to play game, if it's literally just like, hey, you can buy this for like way too much money, that I don't see a problem with that personally.
I almost wish
I
they
don't
would
know
like...
why everybody's so salty about this in chat. They're like really pissed at me.
Don't worry.
They're just
about it.
like, if you don't want it, don't buy it. Yeah, I get it, but I want cosmetic things because I think that in itself is fun. And if you make something really cool looking and then put a huge price tag on it, I don't want to pay that.
I mean, that's why the huge price tag is there, though, right? That's you're defining it as
in the danger
it's not worth $500
as a highly coveted item, right?
Extrapolating this and like flattening the issue down to what people are going to call a logical extreme, like, you know, there are like $500,000 sports cars, and I can like look at a $500,000 sports car and be like, I want that, but it's too expensive. Like, I guess I just don't understand the disconnect between like...
Okay, maybe it's an old school thought process, but I believe that all the content in a game should be in that game for a reasonable price.
But you're getting it for free, which is not an old school...
I'm taking
all the
problem
content,
with it
though.
being free even.
But back in the day, you would pay money and then there weren't microtransactions in it.
I know, I'd prefer that.
I want to like
But
expand on this.
we wouldn't be talking about it though if that were the case.
Take the sports car analogy, like turn existence into a free-to-play game, right? Like we all...
No, but you have an obligation to exist on some level because we're already existing.
But just for the sake of this, we can say like everyone plays free on Earth, right? But like a lot of people want a Ferrari, but not everybody can get the Ferrari, right? Like it's basically the same principle, right?
That's telling you, though, that you're of more value if you have more money, and that's kind of not how I believe games need to function.
It's the sale of a good, though. It's the sale of a good.
It is.
It's a digital good that has no intrinsic value. It's pixels.
Yeah, but that's the value is for those who play the game to decide.
Here's my problem, is if you know that it's valueless, which it is, why are you unhappy or discontented that you can't get it? Because it seems like it should be meaningless to you.
Because it looks cool.
Then it has value! You've just assigned it value by saying it looks cool.
It has minimal value. It's value in a collecting, like I want to accomplish all the things way. I want to get all the stuff that's available. So telling me I can't have it unless I pay $500, even if it's stupid, frustrates me.
Okay. That's, I mean, like, that's the point I think we arrived to where, you know, like, okay, that sucks that you feel that way, I guess, is where the only thing I can say at that point, right? Because there's no, like, I can't reason you out of that desire. Can I?
I don't know.
I don't think
Maybe?
I can. Probably
I don't think
not.
so.
Yeah. All right, sorry. You can't have it.
I just, like, I feel like this is the wrong game to grind this axe on.
Like, no, it's just so close to being great, aside from that one gripe. I don't know why this has gotten to be such a thing.
Well, because we've been, not we, but like me, and also a lot of consumers have been of the opinion that the ideal model for having a free-to-play game with microtransactions is that all of the gameplay content is free, and then there's cosmetic deals.
So, okay,
like
here's
Dota
the problem. 2. Everyone's mischaracterizing me, saying right now that I want to not pay for anything. That is not correct. I said I'd be very happy paying for it. It's a quality product. I just don't like the idea that there's something that's that expensive. If you want to pay them and support them, send them a fucking donation, right? Why does it have to be a $500 in-game item that puts you in a class that makes you look better than someone else? So I don't know why the money has to come in at all in that way.
You take issue, like you already like basically said this too. I just want to reiterate it. You take issue with the fact that expensive of a thing exists. Like you want the bar that the developers set for in-game items to be put lower.
I've always wanted a complete package available for a price. If you pay X amount, you get all of the game. And that seems to be more and more not a thing.
That's not a thing. Yeah, I think basically that's just not a thing anymore, you know? Like
I hate that. That drives me insane.
That was actually kind of the conversation I wanted to maybe have with the Ask Roundtable question we got. But yeah, like the fact that the landscape is changing. Most games, especially free-to-play games, they don't give you an option to get the full experience. Whether it be like they're taking away 3 or 4 little cosmetic things, like it's not the way it's not the business model that works. And the ones that have the business model that works, you see at the top of the Steam sellers are the ones like this that have like those exorbitant, ridiculous things that some people buy just because they love the game so much. They're like, fuck it, I want a $500 helmet because I love this developer. And
this particular game is not the biggest symptom of this problem at all. No. Like, it's just another branch of the problem. Mm-hmm. When I got really invested in this being...
It's a problem, though. I mean, I guess we're drawing lines at different spots. Like, everybody's going to have their own, like, problem at a different area. But, like, Battlegrounds or Shadow of War, where it's a game that costs money, and then not only are there microtransactions, but they're gambling-based microtransactions. Is like, if people are like, "Hey, Battlegrounds is selling crates," and I think that's shitty. I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm with you on that." But for a free-to-play game that's completely free to also have like optional purchase cosmetics, that literally like does not tick my needle of outrage at all.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. Mm-hmm. As I was saying though, the biggest egregious issue here is stuff like when Mortal Kombat would come out and every retailer gets a different DLC skin. That kind of stuff where they expect you're going to buy the game 4 times to get all the content in the game.
Yeah. I mean, like we've been talking about
it a year and release it anyway.
We've been talking about that since like 2014 though, like that's been a pervasive issue throughout retailers.
And it's never stopped bothering me. So that's the one thing that ticks the box of being frustrated in Path of Exile. Okay. It doesn't mean I think Path of Exile is a bad game at all. It's just something that bugged me.
I think I'm glad we, extrapolated further, because I think we've boiled this down to its finer point that will hopefully clarify your position. Anyway, Path of Exile. that went a little longer than we thought. That was fun.
It's the thing I have to say about it. That's all.
No, that's fair.
Other than that, though, I don't think hardly anyone's going to really have a problem with it. Mm-hmm. As I was saying, when I started it, I don't even know if I have a right to the moral high horse that I'm trying to take here. Yeah. Which is why everyone started screaming at me that I'm an idiot.
You introduced
I tried to couch it properly.
No, you did. Like, you put a caveat at the beginning of, like, hey, well, this is extreme pedantry, but let me just mention it. And then we got into, a 10-minute conversation.
I'll give you that as well, but I don't know. I kind of feel like you can't win for losing if you're the developer in this case. Like, they obviously are not hurting for money now that the Path of Exile is taken off like crazy. But they did it like maybe 99% right, like without possibly completely compromising their business model by offering like 20 different SKUs where like, oh, here's like the full buffet option for $100, all the content's available to you with in-game grinding or something like that. So I don't know. Again, we're just we have different perspectives on this, but I think that completely free to play with completely cosmetic microtransactions is like as ethical a business model as here is our full price game with all the content.
But huge price tags don't bother you in that case? No, you say do whatever you want.
Maybe I'm the crazy one, but like I see a dude with like a gold helmet that says like Founders Pack, I'm rich, and I'm like, that dude is an idiot. He is so stupid to spend like $500 on that hat. Like,
or Star Citizen. I mean, people paid hundreds of thousands of dollars.
If we're going to talk about exorbitant price tags, dude, that's
Dan has invested his entire Big Brother winnings into that
game. That's really should be the poster child for it, don't you think? But
I guess my point is I don't believe it is the perfect system, but I guess it's closer to perfect than most. And I guess I'm one of the very small minority that has an issue with I just want all the content.
I think like you're kind of lumping a lot of the same, or like a lot of issues into the same sort of defining feature of like not offering the full experience too. Like I don't know if I'd necessarily equate having a really high price item with, spreading DLC across different retailers. I think those are sort of like different issues as well, but maybe kind of stemming from the same thing. From the
that's
same
kind of what
desire
I was saying.
That's
why I said this is not the most egregious issue. It's just another branch of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a much more mild version of it.
Right.
I guess nobody relates. That's
You're just all alone on this branch, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, good for you for going out on a limb, right? Right? All right.
Anyway, you can try Path of Exile for nothing.
Yeah, it's free. You can just go play it now. Hey, let's jump out of the Nick sandwich real quick. I'll give you a break, and let's talk about Nidhogg 2, please, Ryan.
Yeah, Nidhogg 2 is Nidhogg 1, but it has more weapons and a different art style that is way more claymation based, and the online actually works, which is sweet.
That is really good news, yeah.
It's a really easy description to say that Nidhogg 2 is Nidhogg 1 plus working multiplayer, a different art style, and also character customization. So instead of playing...
the art is bad.
Yeah, but okay.
The characters are bad.
I'm gonna... Again, I may be in the majority, I may be in the minority here. I do think it looks worse than the original Nidhogg, but I also think that is like tangential to the value of the game.
Yeah,
like,
I hear you.
If you're playing Nidhogg because it like looks sick, I think that's weird. I think the reason that Nidhogg 1 was popular, at least like, lowercase p popular, is because it had cool mechanics and was like a fun and accessible but still deep party game that theoretically you could play, online, but didn't really work very well. So I think that this is broaching a larger subject. I think that it's like the Titanfall issue where people were like, hey, I've got a great excuse not to buy Titanfall. It doesn't have a single-player campaign. Like, looking at Nidhogg 2, I'm like, it's a really good game, but all of the discourse, minus, like, the hardcore community who is complaining about balance changes, they're all saying, like, it looks like shit, so I'm not going to buy it. And I think that is kind of secondary to the fact that the game is actually fun. And the bigger discussion to be had is, like, hey, should there be a Nidhogg 2 when they could have released this as, like, a free patch to actually make Nidhogg 1 do what it should have done in the first place, plus new weapons? But anyway.
I want to, having only viewed and not played it, I want to jump to the defense of the art style, because I've wanted to play devil's advocate there basically since it was revealed and everybody just took a giant shit on it. Like, it looks like... I think when they made it, they wanted to have something kind of cartoony and fun like this, but the first Nidhogg just sort of ended up looking, kind of just droll, and it really wasn't...
Looks like an Atari game.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to look like anything in particular, really. It was just kind of meant to be a placeholder so that the gameplay would work. But with this, like, I think they wanted something like this that's kind of colorful and claymation-y, like you said, and it has this very vibrant color scheme. And I really think, like, it complements the gameplay, because it's a really silly game. Like, it's very violent, obviously, but it's a kind of cartoony 90s violence where you're, like, stabbing and you're, like, stomping people's faces in and stuff like that. It's... I don't know. I think it just works for the game now.
Did you think that the original Nidhogg was placeholder art? Because it was very much an art aesthetic, I thought.
You thought so? I mean, calling it placeholder art is very, dismissive, but it's...
But the thing that annoys me is, like, sorry to interrupt, but, like,
no, it's fine.
I think it's like, if we did a thought experiment and we're like, okay, what if they came out with Nidhogg 2, but it had the same art as Nidhogg 1? I think instead of having a discussion about, like, the art style is bad or at least controversial or divisive, people would just be like, it looks the same as Nidhogg 1. It's like Nidhogg 1 plus 4 maps or something.
I guess that's an interesting question then. If the art style is completely removed from Nidhogg 2, is there anything new worth talking about in this game?
Yeah. It has more levels. The online works. There's multiple weapons. It's just more refined, I guess.
It seems like the weapon balance in particular is important to discuss, and it seems like they did actually a really good job with that, with the variety and how different things interact with each other, right?
Yeah. Nick and I were having a lot of fun, and, like, the thing that's... And I wouldn't say I'm upset, but the thing that annoys me when people talk about Nidhogg 2 is that it's all about the art. When Nidhogg as, like, a concept is really cool in that it's very tower-fall-y, in that the mechanics are very, very simple to kind of pick up, but then become deeper the more you play. Like, Nick and I were having a fun time. Well, I guess I won't speak for him, but I thought we were having a fun time. Yeah. Like, with our first 10 minutes of the game, just being like, oh, so we're like, we got different weapons so we can fight each other. We understand the bow is ranged, and we understand the dagger has shorter range, and the, like, broadsword is stronger. But, like, as we played more, we realized there actually is more depth even beyond that, where, like, the broadsword is powerful and can disarm people, but it also only has like 2 positions it can be in instead of 3, so it's more vulnerable to attacks that come in on the mid instead of low and high. And like the bow it seemed really bad for a while because when you throw it, it's non-lethal and then you have no weapon. But you can also run while priming an attack simultaneously, so you can kind of prepare for enemies to respawn a little bit faster, and there's like some balance that way.
Mm-hmm. And why throw the bow when you have a projectile, right?
Also fair. Usually it's like an accident, I think, for the most
just
part.
An instinct.
So I think that, like, even though I brought up the question of, like, why is there a Nidhogg 2, I think that the sequel does enough to justify being transformative because of the new weapons changes, which add a lot to the game. It kind of takes that very pure, elegant gameplay loop of Nidhogg 1 and adds a little bit, like another axis of variety to it that I think is transformative, although I do question, like, if you owned Nidhogg 1, do you need Nidhogg 2? Maybe, maybe not, but, you know, absent that question, I had a lot of fun with it in the hour that we played, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to mention, and this is my thing with the art style, is if you just remove the characters, it's actually beautiful.
Yeah.
Just try that. Just think about it. It's really just the character design that we find incredibly jarring, and I believe the dissonance here is because there's a sort of an elegance to the way that it's very minimal and sort of Atari 2600 looking in the original, whereas the new one has this sort of almost dark comedy bent to it that just feels a little wrong. Because you've got this elegance to this sort of weird comedy sake, and it's like you didn't feel like it was about to be funny in the original. It was the people dying.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying, right? Is like I feel like they maybe wanted to do something like that because they've got a kind of foundation for it, and then when you really look at it with that lens, you think, oh yeah, it does fit. Like the art fits, the animation style fits, the way that they're kind of janky and everything just happens so fast. It's like I said, it's like kind of cartoony, and I think I appreciate it more for that, kind of expecting that out of it, you know?
I think it also, like, it looks, if the first game looked like Atari 2600, this looks like a weird Sega Genesis game where everything's kind of lumpy and like pseudo 3-dimensional despite being side-scrolling. So, I mean, I think it has a certain visual charm, but I just get annoyed that all the conversation is about it being ugly.
I thought it looked atrocious when I first saw it too, and it was because it was unsettling how dissonant it was. But you come around, the gameplay is really good.
I will say there's kind of I would say a missed opportunity, even though this might be a little ignorant of the resources they have available. But the online works, and that's cool. But for it to be like a little bit more of a sticky online multiplayer experience, having, like, Nick and I were talking about, like an open lobby system, like a lot of fighting games have, where you could have like one person stay and they, you know, like 2 people fight and then the winner stays, and then there's a queue system where like people can come in after that and join, and you can kind of like spectate the game as it's going on at the same time. Just to, because if we were going to do like a stream with like 4 people of Nidhogg 2, there's going to be a lot of time where we're like, okay, well, that game's over, quit to menu, then we'll like 1v1 each other in the lobby again and record the results and like, you know, go on from there. So I think that like misses out on it to some extent. It really is like bare bones, like, hey, you can 1v1 your friends at home, and now also you can do it online as well.
Word.
Glad it works properly.
Yeah,
I was
no
very
kidding.
frustrated with how long Nidhogg 1 did not work properly.
The online functionality, just like, you didn't have any lag, any issues whatsoever for the hour that you guys played?
It was pretty much fine, actually.
No hiccups that I saw.
Hell yeah. Good. Okay. You can, that was the other thing I was going to ask. You can customize the weapons available from the start too, right? So you can like take off the bow if you don't like it and stuff like that.
I don't know, actually.
Okay.
But there's like the customization is like a character customization, so you can give yourself like a hat and you know, weird clay skin color, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
There should be, though. If it isn't a feature, like the ability to have just a swords only fight seems like an obvious thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like it seems like they would have thought about that, so I'm pretty sure that's an option.
I want to point out that like 2 or 3 years ago, all these local games are coming out and we played them at PAX and be like, I really hope they come out with that with online. This is that. So I'm willing to give them like 2 thumbs up for actually, I don't want to be the YouTube dude who was like, for years we've been asking for this, and then, but it looks a little worse than the original. Like, kudos for actually taking the game and then making the online work. Hopefully everybody does that, even though it's not easy.
And insofar as this art discussion keeps going, this is the end of that for me. I don't need to ever criticize it again. I'm good now. It doesn't matter.
Good. I kind of I had this bouncing around in my head now. There's a YouTube dude character. You know, he's just like kind of a pretentious, finally getting contacts in the scene. I can't believe this indie dev didn't send me the Steam key with this email. They don't know who they're messing with. I'm the YouTube dude.
I just colored my hair for the first time.
YouTube dude
staying on brand.
YouTube dude is the guy who always spends 50% of the video talking about good things and 50% of the video talking about bad things, even if the game is a masterpiece. Mm-hmm. So it'll always it changed my life. It was transformative, but the UI on the credits scene, I'm not a huge fan of the font choice that they had there, and the scroll speed leaves a little bit to be desired.
No game is perfect. No game is perfect.
So, if you're a fan of the genre, you might be interested. Consider checking it out. It's your boy.
It's your boy. It's your boy, YouTube dude. Stop that, YouTube dude. Gonna recall our, iterative and non-reliable segment, Stop That, to put a stop to the new segment, YouTube Dude. So that's all coming full circle there, too.
Do you have the Stop That, the jingle?
Do I have the stop? I don't know if I have the Stop That jingle ready. I couldn't do it in time. I wish I did. I need I got to get a Stream Deck, I guess, for that shit. That's why I got to have that handy.
Hope you have Windows 10.
Oh, right. Yeah, shit. Do you have it set up so it goes through your microphone, or is it all going through your computer?
Mine all goes through my computer.
Ah, okay.
So if I press the button, I can press it right now. Here's the slide whistle, and
nothing. All right. Well,
you can set it up with virtual audio cables so it goes through your mic feed.
That's true.
Yeah, but I have actual work.
That is actual work. You kidding me?
It's part of your job.
No, that's
making stupid sounds.
That's a tertiary justification, in my opinion, at least.
Nick. We gotta complete the Nick sandwich. Let me hear
There's
about
another one. I also did Hellblade.
Oh, that's true too. Well, you know what? That's mixed in.
I played a lot of games.
The end there. You did. You had a pretty busy week, man. I want to hear about Observer though.
Observer is the new game by Bloober Team. Those are the people that worked on Layers of Fear. Mm-hmm. You might remember them for their adept ability at incredible texture work in video games. Layers of Fear, a very pretty game. So Observer, the premise is it's sort of a I almost want to say steampunk, but it's not steampunk. It's a sci-fi something punk. Cyberpunk, that's the one. Go. Cyberpunk detective story, because apparently I'm really into detective stories all of a sudden.
Yeah, no kidding.
And you are this person who exists in a world where there are people filled with augmentation, sort of like a Deus Ex thing. They're half human, half android type people. And he goes to this site and finds in an apartment building someone who he thinks may be his son, but he's not sure because he was decapitated. And then the story takes off from there. And you've got to go around this apartment block.
He's not sure because he was decapitated.
I mean, it's harder to tell when you don't have a head and some of your limbs aren't flesh anymore.
Those are defining characteristics of most people.
He's got to put the story back together about what if that's his son or what happened. And then in the process of him doing that, something happens and the lights turn red and then the apartment block gets locked down and you can't leave. So you have to come up with clever ways to navigate between the different apartment buildings to go talk to people through doors and then eventually lead you through this sort of linear breadcrumb trail to dead people or dying people who you can invade their minds and experience hallucinogenic cutscenes that are also interactable. I don't know if that made a lot of sense, but that's kind of what you do.
Very difficult to follow, to be honest. There's a lot of very crazy shit going on.
It's a very abstract first-person detective game with not a lot of gameplay, mostly walking and clicking on things. But there are actually two different sight modes that aid in the detective parts where you actually need to switch to them and then look for clues like blood stains and scratches on things and stuff. There's also a bit of reading computer terminals and possibly a virus that causes you to see things wrong. Not totally clear on this bit yet because I've played about 4 hours into it, and to be honest, I think I'm not going to be finishing this game.
Yeah.
My opinions were not largely positive overall. My main gripe with it being that it's just a visual clusterfuck. The game is a cacophony of nonsense. And I don't mean that lightly, because Bloober Team are very good at what they do, in that they're good at making obfuscation, kind of confusing, disorienting scenes.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of their bread and butter. However, I think they over-relied on that in this particular game, to the extent where when you get into those hallucination moments where you're jacked into like a dying person's head, all you do is walk, and then everything melts and shifts and breaks and makes loud sounds, and all the screen gets covered in dots, and it's like too much.
They're kind of handicapping their own strength there, where like they created this beautiful world, but then they just cover it with a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So you go from kind of tedium of walking around and nothing really happening for a while, occasionally talking to somebody through a door, listening to some voice acting, and then just complete sensory overload for a little bit too. And when you put those two things together, it's like going from 0 to 100 to 0 to 100. It's just jarring in like an uncomfortable way. And you could make the argument that their intent was to make you uncomfortable, make you feel claustrophobic and disoriented. Maybe that is the case, but it didn't rub me right, unfortunately. The characters were not compelling enough. The cutscenes and moments of that hallucinogenic stuff were not interesting enough, kind of went on too long. And occasionally they just didn't make sense, to the point where I didn't know where I was trying to walk. Like, I couldn't see to walk forward. There was just too much going on in my sight. So ultimately, I found it rather frustrating. It seems like the general consensus of people are mostly liking it, though, so I feel like I'm a bit at odds with the majority. I know Kate didn't like it in particular, right? So, yeah, I mean, if you want to speak to it a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't watch her play that. I just know at the end she was like, I'm not going to play that again. I didn't really like it.
Okay. So, yeah,
well,
perhaps anecdotal. I don't know. I hate to be down on them, because I know they're an incredibly capable team. They're really good at what they do. Just this one didn't coalesce in all the right ways for me. And maybe you don't agree if you've seen some of the footage of it and you get into that. And I personally do get into that kind of stuff, but I feel like they overdid it.
Do you know what they made before Layers of Fear?
I think that was their first commercial release. Which is amazing if that's the case, because that was a really visually polished game.
Apparently they put out an arcade brawler called Brawl in 2015, so there you go. I guess they worked on that as well. They've taken an interesting shift in tone then over the few years they've been around. They put out a game every year, apparently, from 2014 on. That's pretty impressive that they've gotten that kind of production schedule, too.
Yeah, for real.
All right. Well, there you go. Observer. $30 just came out a few days ago on Steam. There's your rec. Let me send this Mathis off your way.
Hey, what's up? Hey, I played a game this week.
Hey, look at you.
Oh, so sweet.
But before actually, I want to, real quick, this isn't even on the docket, but I was looking over at your YouTube channel. Tell me about, what is Universim? I didn't know anything about that.
Universim is a game that's been in development for, I think, 1 or 2 years now. They launched a Kickstarter, maybe it was 2015, where the idea is kind of Spore-like, where it's a god game where you're raising this civilization of people from like caveman times, and the plan is to get them to the space age and exploring other planets and doing that thing. The game just introduced its update where it now supports saved games, so I decided to check it out for about 4 episodes before the game became unstable and crashed a lot.
Nice.
But it's just right now you're kind of just god gaming these cavemen people and trying to guide them through civilization. You don't have any direct control over them. As they populate the planet, they build their own homes and they expand in their own way, and you kind of have to adapt to where they're expanding and build buildings near where their huts are, and weather can come by and like wreck like their entire civilization. It's really fun. I think in order to play it right now, like I paid $40 for it, so you need to pay $40 to play it. It's not worth $40 yet. But they keep a relatively updated demo on Steam that you can grab at any point and just play and try out whenever. And they keep that pretty close to the build available to the people who have backed it or bought it on their website. So they don't try to hide what's going on. It's a cool idea. I think it's if it lives up to what they're trying to do, it could be fantastic. But it's still very clearly got a long way to go.
It's got a very Sims-esque UI to it, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's visually appealing too. It's bright and it's colorful, and once the UI isn't all that confusing either. Once they give you the quick tutorial on how it works, it's fun. There's a lot of things that are just still like, as you hover over them, it's like still to be developed or coming soon or whatever. So there's still things that you can't really do, but I hope it turns out the way they want it to, because what's there is a really good base, and it's a little, like I said, it's a little unstable after you play it for a couple hours, and like your population starts getting really big, and the game just starts crashing a lot. So that's where it's at. It's fun, but I'd say hold off for now.
Sweet. All right. And let's get into the one that I actually wanted to talk
Darkwood.
about. Darkwood!
August is the month of all those 2013-14 early access survival games that I put time into are coming out. So it's like going back into a time capsule and playing them. Darkwood is a survival game, kind of. There's crafting. You don't really have to eat or drink or maintain like bodily functions like you do in other survival games. But it's directly top down, and it is a survival horror game. There aren't any jump scares. It's all atmosphere. And you're basically wandering around this world trying to figure out where you are and why you're here. The game opens up with you controlling this mad doctor, as far as you can tell. And his house is like all run down, and outside, like the trees that are growing have like people in them and are like getting eaten by these trees, and there's like weird creatures all around. And the idea in the beginning of this mad doctor, you kidnap this guy who has a key to get out of here. And he like kidnaps him and puts him in like this back closet. And he starts beating him for information. And then after like he basically beats him within an inch of his life, the screen goes black, and then you take over as the kidnapped guy, and you break out of that house, and then he passes out, and then you wake up in your own house, and the goal is to get the hell out of this area that is being overtaken by these trees that have people growing in them, and it's all weird, and there's
like my description of Observer.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like
I was going to
rambling, crazy.
But there's like but in this one there's like, you know, there's a day-night cycle, and at night you want to get back to your house, and you need to make sure your generator has enough fuel in it to keep the lights on, because outside your house like creatures come around and you can hear them. Out in the first night I was in my house, and in the other room I heard somebody climb into the window, and they were messing around with the furniture, and they were looking through things. You can hear them walking around. They tried to open the door, and I had to run over and shut the door and hope they didn't come into the room I was in. It's really unsettling and super creepy. And I love that, because there's no cheap jump scares in the game. There's nothing that's going to jump out at you. It's all just atmospheric and unsettling and weird. And it's kind of a cool story. There's like side quests you can do, and the ending of the game can change depending on if you do the side quest or not, because you can just straight up kill the quest killer if you feel like it. Quest giver if you feel like it. You can just beat him to death if you want to.
That's always a nice option.
It's a messed up game. Like it's an absolutely messed up game with weird shit that happens. I love it a lot. It's a really, really good game.
I didn't realize this was a Greenlight title as well. Apparently, that's a
the game's
callback.
been in development for 4 years. I think it got Indiegogo'd is how they went about it. And then they just released alpha after alpha for 3 or 4 years on Steam. And it came out, and from my understanding, the reception of the game has been fantastic. People have like, this is great. This is exactly what the developers promised, and it's been really fun.
Man, they got
so far.
They got Indiegogo'd and greenlit. They should have just done a Kickstarter and done the Indie Triple Crown. That would have been pretty sweet.
Just get double funded.
Yeah.
What about a fig?
Oh, there you go.
Fig,
yeah,
you gotta invest
in
in the fig and whatnot. I mean, I think Nick, it's something I would actually like to hear your thoughts on, because you're a horror game fan, kind of like I am, and you're not all about the jump scares like me.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, can you really get as much immersion from a top-down perspective? I wonder if you can, because I look at this and like, this reminds me of like a dark prison architect. Obviously, it looks nicer than that.
I definitely agree. Like the top-down camera angle can be a little offsetting, but the audio design in the game is amazing.
That was my next question. Actually, it seems like that would be a focal point then, if the aesthetic of wandering around top down is not really going to scare you all that much. So the audio is very good.
The audio is incredible, and I actually don't mind the top down aesthetic because of the way they present some of the way things look. Like the game suits its creepy aesthetic really well. But yeah, like even just like moving desks around, like the sound of it like scraping up against the wooden floor underneath is enough to set you off, where like what that sounds like, and you can hear it coming from your other room, and you understand that, okay, the table in that room is being moved by something that came in my window. Oh shit, like what could it be? It's good. I'd be eager to see if any of you end up picking it up and trying it, because I think, like I said, I think Nick would enjoy the game quite a bit.
I think this actually might be up my alley, weirdly enough. Like, I'm really not a horror game guy. I avoid the jump scares quite a bit. Although, you know what? now that I've played the games like Amnesia, like Outlast, like the ones that are supposed to be, oh, this will scare the shit out of you, you know, like
Yeah.
they're not that bad. Like it's once, especially like when you get past I think there's a point in most of those games where the fear of the unknown is surpassed by the fear of the known, and then it becomes a lot less intimidating, you know?
Yeah. Agreed.
And I guess
that's my problem with jump scare games in general, is that like once the first few jump scares hit you, like you kind of get numb to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, all right, I can tell when a jump scare is coming.
Yeah, you start to predict the formula too, which has become pretty bad. It's like, Nick, I'm sure you can speak to that, right?
I have a funny attitude about this, where I think every time I see a jump scare, I sort of discredit the developer a little bit more, because it's like they don't care to make an atmosphere most of the time, and instead just rely on that. And I've played games where the entire game is just a maze with jump scares in it, and those are just nonsense. Like, don't even bother at that point.
I think I know, like, even like a particular game coming to mind that you might have even played.
And I don't mean that one.
You don't mean that one? Okay.
No.
Spooky's House of Jump Scares?
Spooky's House of Jump Scares is actually almost clever, because it used jump scares as a way to obfuscate something else.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the games that are like, this is a UE4 game, and the whole thing is it's like a big square with a bunch of lines in it, and inside of those lines are monsters that run after you, and if it catches you, it goes, and then you're supposed to
got you.
Oh my god, I want views! And then everyone gives you views, and then you make a lot of money,
and then it gives you views, yep. It's
right? Because that's how YouTube works, and I resent that a lot.
I think a lot of the horror for Darkwood, to pull it back to that game for a minute, is there's, like I said, there's a day and night, and the day you're exploring the world and you're doing the quest, and the world itself is messed up and weird and creepy, but it's not like scary, it's just interesting and bizarre. And then all of that during the day while doing the quest, you're preparing for the night to come where you have to hide in your house, and it's that preparation for night, filling your generator with gasoline, making sure all the windows are boarded up, locking your doors, setting traps near the windows in case they do break in, and like listening to the things outside your house starting to try to break down your door or break down your window to come in. That's where the horror is just like the tension of preparing for the night and then living through the night to get to the next day. Yeah. That's where a lot of the spooks are coming from. Yeah.
It says this is ever changing for your own world. Is that
so? The world itself, every time you play, is I don't want to say it's randomly generated. There are set pieces in the world that is always in every world you play in, no matter what. It's just where in the world that they are placed gets changed every time you play it.
So it's like Dead by Daylight style. Like kinda, same overworld, just different locations to things.
More or less. And I mean, if you play on normal mode, it doesn't matter. Like normal mode is just you die, and when you die, you lose a little bit of what's in your inventory, but it's never like you never like fucked completely. And then there's like permadeath mode, which you die once and you're dead.
I guess I asked because I would find that ever-changing aspect, if it was happening frequently, which it doesn't sound like it is, combined with the top-down perspective, means you're going to have sort of a difficult time navigating, because you can't see out in front of you very far, right? So you're just sort of operating with what's in your frame of view.
You have a map.
Okay, so
and when you find a landmark, it gets marked on your map, so you can always try and figure out where you are with the map.
Right.
The only other thing, I guess, like ever-changing world they might be referring to is like, as nights pass, the world gets more and more weird and more effed up, but it doesn't really change the map itself. The map will only change when you start a new game.
Fair enough.
Word.
What's the end game like, or do you know? Is it? Really
I haven't beaten it yet, but
extra spooky.
I haven't beaten it yet. I remember the alpha that I played back in 2014 vaguely. I was like, I got 6 hours. I played 6 hours of the game, and it just got really, really weird. And there was this like one creature that ended up showing up every night looking for me. And it was like, she had like this shrill screeching voice as she'd go by my windows and scream looking for me. Yeah, it was just weird. It was creepy.
Back to StarCraft!
Yeah. Never. I'm never going back. Darkwood, I highly suggest it though. If you're into survival games and you want a horror game that is not just jump scares, I would say try it out. I think it's well worth it.
Sweet.
Surprisingly rare to run into non-jump scare horror games. It's really quite rare.
It's nice.
They've kind of latched onto that too, right? They're kind of promoting the fact that they're not relying on that. At least from what I've seen, they're like, hey, we hate that too, so we wanted to make something that isn't that.
Yeah, their whole goal was to just make a world that in itself was creepy enough to explore and survive, and then didn't need to rely on spooks.
Mm-hmm.
Even the new Resident Evil didn't have too many jump scares, and the jump scares that were in that game,
I was actually going to point to that
and well prepared.
Yeah, I was going to point to that as like sort of an example of them done better, at least. But they are still they're pretty predictable.
There's
in some
definitely some,
right?
Yeah, there's still some.
They're front loaded too, is the other thing, which is actually the best way to do it because it weeds out people who don't care after that.
Yeah,
everybody gets their YouTube moment in, and they go, "Oh my god, the chainsaw and the," and then they go, "Okay," and then oh wait, 3 hours later, that didn't happen again. Maybe I'm wasting my time with this game because I don't actually appreciate it.
All right, there's Darkwood. Just came out about a month ago. Well, no, it was okay. So
it came out like yesterday.
Yeah, and then it says on Steam it was on July 17th. That must have just been like
Yeah, no, it hit 1.0 yesterday.
Okay.
So maybe its last update was like in this July, but
got it.
It's been on early access since 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So it's out finally.
Word. There you go. It's $13.49. Normal price $15. Let's go to Sonic Mania. I'm the only one that's played it so far. But these guys, I'm sure, will play it at some point. The PC release. You won't.
Yeah, I'll be playing it when the PC comes
what
out.
About Super Bloody Hockey though?
What about Super Bloody Hockey? What are you talking about?
I don't know. It's a game that's on like the news that just came out yesterday, and figured Ryan played it. But
it has 94% positive reviews on Steam.
Wow.
But I don't want to play it on YouTube because it has blood in the title, and I kind of feel for the developer that like
that's how it works now.
Sucks for you.
That does.
There's no online multiplayer. Game, so.
There is not. Also,
you could call it Super Crimson Hockey, and then like a little bit of a skirt
or
around
do what
the
I've seen
there.
some YouTube news channels do, where they like get the O but with the accent above it instead. So
Super Blue Hockey.
Yeah, Super Blue Hockey.
You gotta do that in hockey as well. Super Blue Hockey.
Exactly.
Sonic Mania.
Sonic Mania.
Sonic Mania. Hey, it's out on the Switch, PS4, Xbox One. It is. I guess you wouldn't call it a remake. It's a new 2D Sonic game. The last one being made in 1994, so it's been a minute. But this is, I guess, the era of classic remakes. You got, of course, the Crash Bandicoot remake that did really, really well, and now everybody's clamoring over Sonic Mania. So I've beaten the game. I clearly enjoyed it quite a bit, enough to play through the whole thing already. But I'm finding myself asking the question: what do I like? Do I like this new Sonic Mania game, or do I just like my childhood and the games I played in it, and I just have like serious nostalgia goggles on for Sonic and the particularly the old 2D Sonic games. So let me introduce that caveat, I suppose, at the start, where I was a Genesis kid, so I grew up with Sonic 2, Sonic 3. I think I remember distinctly, actually, it was Sonic 2, where I wasn't good enough to play, but of course my brother would let me play as Tails. In the first game, he let me play as Tails, which didn't actually do anything. He just let me believe I was playing as Tails and gave me the controller.
Unplugged controller.
Yeah, and then in the second game, I got to be Tails, who you can play as Tails in this game as well, but it's weird because it's like the camera always follows Sonic, and Tails can just sort of get left behind and die, but then, come back flying on screen, and then it's like, hey, I'm back.
That's just how it used to be, right? You
would
always
exactly.
run off, and then Tails just die in the background or get stuck behind some block.
Half the game is him just like desperately trying to keep up with you and dying horribly somehow. So yeah, but I got a bubble in my throat. I kept asking myself that as I was playing through. I was like, okay, now is this just Sonic the original games being enjoyable and good, or is this like new stuff that these folks are doing that appeals to me? And it's a mix of both, I'd say, but it is very reliant upon the source material to be as good as it is. So I guess there's not really a great definitive answer to my question there of which one is it, because like what makes it good is kind of that mix of they did stay true to the source material and made these games very similar to the Sonic 1, 2, and 3, both in terms of gameplay, like presentation. The sound design is very similar to what we had before. In fact, I'm pretty sure they use the exact same sounds for things like explosions. The jump, of course, is very distinct and things like that. And then they have the remix soundtrack, of course, which is just the same tunes, but redone.
I was gonna ask if it's not any new music.
No. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. It's like, so you got the 2 acts for every zone, right? So the first song for at least like the remade levels is very, very similar, but just sort of slightly redone versions of the original songs. And then usually in Act 2, they had like a really heavily remixed version that was very, very good. So the soundtrack is... Sorry, go ahead.
2 brand new worlds in the game as well that are just completely new music, new mechanics, etc.
I think there's 3 or 4. I don't know for sure which ones are all like 100% new levels. I don't remember exactly which ones came from which games. But yeah, there's a collection of remade stages and brand new stuff, which I think it was Donkey who said this, but I echo the sentiment that I kind of wish it was all just new stuff, because the new levels in particular are really, really good. Like, they are way better, in fact, than a lot of the old ones. And so, yeah, I'm kind of talking in circles here, but like, I want to get back to that point of, is it a good game standalone, or do I just really like the original 3 Sonic games, you know? And I am pretty damn certain at this point that I can say with a certainty that Sonic Mania is just really, really, really good, despite like the, just relying a lot on the source material. It's just solid all the way through, man. Like, it's super fun to play. The formula here is really like, it's, you got the ring system, right? Where if you collect rings and then get hit, you lose the amount of rings you have, but you have to go collect them. And
the ring system.
The ring system,
Such
the
fond
old
memories
Sonic
of the ring
classic.
system.
But they've also added on, there's this new power-up you can get. I don't know what it's called, but it's like a blue ring, and then it changes your rings, so if you lose them, they're kind of collected together, and it's like a one-time use thing where it helps you to recover the rings that you've lost. There's like new interactions with the power-ups that you can get, like for example in the oil ocean zone, if you get a fire shield, it lights all of the oil on fire that you're passing by, and that can like damage enemies as well. So there's cool little things that they've done to modernize it a bit, but it is kind of at the same time still just like a new 2D Sonic game. Which
are there bonus
really
levels?
Well. There are, yeah. So they fucking brought back blue red sphere zone for the checkpoint special.
I was hoping for the half pipe instead.
No, I was too, man. That was I think it's much better, but yeah, they like spheres still, I guess, for some reason. But they did make a bonus stage for the, like, so you know how you get to the Chaos Emerald zones is you find the secret areas within the stages that have like the giant ring that you can teleport through.
Yeah.
So that special stage is actually pretty fun. It's called Catch the UFO, and you're like running in sort of like what looks like a 3DS looking zone that you run through, and you're trying to catch this thing while gathering these power-ups that make you go faster, and also collecting rings while trying to avoid falling through the floor. So it's a cool, unique new special stage for this that was a lot of fun.
They've come up with an actual incentive for Sonic to actually go fast.
Yeah, something like that.
Catch a thing. He never ever needs a reason, but it's nice to have one.
Now he's got to catch the UFO. Exactly. Yeah, now he's got something. But I just like, of course, this isn't really, it's weird providing a review for this because it's basically like reviewing the original Sonic the Hedgehog games, but like, I love the balance these always had of fast and slow-paced gameplay, where there will be moments where you're just like flying through the entire stage, just blitzing by everything and collecting 50 rings, and then you'll end up somewhere else. And then, of course, right when you land there, you have to do like this meticulous platforming to make sure you can jump between two enemies, and then, just it slows it down, but then zips you back through another area. Like, the pacing is just really well done throughout the whole thing. It's super easy to just like pick up and play and drop in and out whenever you want, and even play through a whole session in a couple of hours. Like, it's really, really good.
You mentioned the new power-up, but are there still like the Sonic 3 power-ups, like the static shield and the magnet thing and all? Okay, that's all in there.
You got your electric shield, your bubble shield, your fire shield. You got the, I think there was one more.
So it sounds like it's kind of a continuation of Sonic 3 in terms of systems.
Yes. Very accurate description, yes.
Just with like a 20-year gap in between.
Right. Just a little tiny window.
Like, I'm not anti-Sonic.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, like, I've never been hooked by the games. I just don't find it as enjoyable as Mario. I think because I feel like a pressure when you're going that fast. I'm like, I'm not seeing the level. You know, like I should be walking through this or something because the Sonic part of my brain is fried somehow. But I really like that they basically pulled like a Capcom and we're like, hey, this franchise is in a weird spot where we keep coming out with games that are made fun of heavily on the internet. So why don't we just go back to our roots and make like a modern yet 2D classic Sonic? Like,
and let the right people make it too.
Yeah, exactly. Like
meaning not us, because we can't be trusted.
Yeah, I would love to see that happen more often.
Yeah,
like
I think
Mega Man 9 and 10 did a really good job of it.
Yes, they did.
By all accounts, Super Mario Maker is a little bit like a twist on that, but still, for the most part, kind of scratched that itch.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like, I would love to see some other franchises that are in weird spots do that instead of being like, hey, we're going to make like another 3D one that is probably not going to be very well received.
And from my understanding, the development team of Sonic Mania were making fan games for a long time and were discovered by the Sega team because they made like fan Sonic games. And they were pulled in because they understood Sonic. And so they were like, all right, look, you make fan games, you make good fan games. How about you make an official
I think it's
Sonic
like
game?
particularly, I don't know a lot of the history, but Christian Whitehead, I think, is like the dude behind this. He's known by Taxman, I guess, and he's, you know, like the project lead for Sonic Mania. He's been kind of the go-to for how do we make the Sonic games that were good, and he's the man to figure it out, I guess.
Doesn't it seem like the ultimate act of overthinking, though, to come this far after this many iterations to just do the thing that made sense in the first place?
To be fair to them, I think there was, like, you could give them some slack for at least, like, 10 years of missteps, I think. Because it looked like, back when Sonic was coming out, you know, in, like, 1995, everything was 2D. And then they're like, oh, we got to get with the times. We got to modernize and start making, like, 3D games. And Sonic Adventures, you know, I have not played 1 or 2, but apparently they're fairly well respected. But after that, they kind of lost it. But it only within maybe like the past, I would say 10 years, became plausible to come out with a 2D game and have it not seem like you're cheating, like you're taking the easy way out and just mining nostalgia. So I think that the climate was probably right for it like 6 or 7 years ago, but it's still like kind of right for it now.
I guess the part I'm not accounting for is that whether or not they could have made a good game, they may have still not made one that was received properly by the audience, even if it was good.
Right,
because
like,
the cultural expectation is 3D.
Exactly. Think about like when Mario 64 came out, Sonic just tries to come out with Sonic 4, which is just a 2D Sonic game. No one would buy it,
then
right?
they weren't too far into the 3D part yet. I think it still would have gone over well. But in that awkward, transition between the end of N64 and then on, I think that's exactly the time when it would have gone over the least well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's stupid. They've got to manage the public perception of the way graphics are rendered so they can make a game that sells well.
That was so revolutionary, though. Like, the entire industry couldn't avoid having to, you know, latch onto the 3D wave. There was nothing that you could do. You had to be on board.
What frustrates me about Sonic is that maybe in the past, 3 or 4 years, they've had games where they've had moments of, oh, that's really good, like Sonic Generations and the 2D levels, but they still mixed it with shit like Sonic the Werehog garbage. And freaking or Sonic Boom, where it's like they've hit on good Sonic games buried under
Sonic
garbage
06
Sonic games. Yeah, it's just so weird that they can have games where there's good moments and then just outweigh by the terrible moments because they thought that it was necessary to mix classic Sonic platforming with 3D werewolf action.
Yeah, just as another selling point for Mania, I really enjoyed quite a few just the little gimmicks that they introduced level by level as well. I don't want to spoil it, but there is one boss fight pretty early on that I just put a big dumb stupid smile on my face. So fans of the Sonic games will definitely enjoy that. And then there's I want to say what it is so bad, but one of the later stages. You make
out with Amy Rose, right?
Yeah, you do. Sorry, damn it. How'd you figure it out? One of the later stages just uses a clever little gimmick that I think is so cool, but I won't spoil that either. But just know that it was mind blowing for me, and I was pretty damn impressed, man. And I've got it on the Switch now, so I'm gonna play Sonic on airplanes, and I'm pretty excited about that for the future.
Dude, I don't know about you, but Is anybody else in this weird kind of like Sonic ambiguity where like since Sonic Generations there have been like 5 3D Sonics and I have no idea which one is which?
Oh,
like,
same. Yeah,
I'm in
right
this
there.
world where like I know there's 2 things that I know to be true. There's always a 3D Sonic in development, and a 3D Sonic came out a year ago. So I know there was like the one, like there was Triangle Knuckles. What happened to is Triangle Knuckles out yet? The one where he looks like he's an upside down.
Is that in development, or is that the one that came out last year?
You're talking about Sonic
Rise of
Boom.
Lyric,
Sonic
I thought
Boom,
was that
okay.
one.
Yeah,
And then
they all
like,
got weird looking.
yeah.
That was the new low point for the series, right?
Yeah, that was like the new Sonic 06 with how broken it was.
Yeah, and then
there's like Sonic Forces is in development right now.
Yeah, that's like you get to make your fanfic Sonic character comes to life.
Oh,
Thank
no.
God.
all right, here we go.
Make your
Also,
own Sonic
Sonic
character.
4 Episode 2 happened
Yeah.
at some point? I don't remember when that
Wasn't
was.
there like a Wii U downloadable Sonic where
It's weird.
you played one of the levels by tilting the Wii U controller
Lost
to like
World?
move Sonic?
We need like a Sonic newsletter to keep track of all the different platforms all these games are coming out
Sonic Lost World was the Wii U one. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about.
thought I might be thinking of something else. But
I don't remember that.
You've actually like brought me back down to a new low. Like I forgot that like Sonic Mania is amazing. I forgot that Sonic like make your own Sonic OC as a playable character is coming out, and I'm like, why is that still a thing?
Man, you
Orange
know,
County?
Fuck. Original character, do not steal.
Oh.
But it is like, I mean, if
Maybe
there's
like
ever been a
pregnant ones.
time to not bash Sonic, I guess it's right now.
Yeah.
Within the
Mania.
past like 20 years anyway. I guess
Oh, I
it's
can
right
still
now.
bash Sonic and say Sega are idiots for not doing this earlier.
True, but
But
like,
that's bashing Sega, really.
at least they've done it now.
Okay.
And then
I really-
next year
I
when
mean,
we can bring it back down with
That's
Sonic
what I guess now
Forces.
it's like the real work starts now. Because what do? Like you can probably put out Sonic Mania 2. Can you put out Sonic Mania 4 without people being like, I'm done with this? I don't know.
yeah, that's a good question actually. Like, where do you go from here with Sonic? I don't know.
Well,
if...
some things can end.
Yeah,
I know
no,
that
that'd be
sounds
fine.
insane to say, but like you can just stop doing a thing.
I mean, fuck, dude. Looking at this list of Sonic the Hedgehog video games on Wikipedia, I don't know if this shit's ever gonna stop. This thing goes on for miles.
What was the last 3D Sonic game before this? Was it Sonic
3D.
Boom?
I think it was
Boom.
Rise of, or yes, Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric.
Rise of
Curious.
Lyric, the Rocket League extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like, isn't Sonic Boom a game and then Rise of Lyric is like a sub? So this might make me sound ignorant.
I don't know.
I thought Sonic Boom was the game, and then Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric was like a tangential version of that game for a different platform.
Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is on Wii U. I'll tell you that right now.
And is Sonic Boom?
I don't
full
think
stop, its
Sonic
own
Boom
thing?
is its own game. No. But oh wait, no, hold on. The latest. Oh yeah, there is a Sonic Boom series.
No.
Well, there's a cartoon
Oh, that's
series.
okay. Yeah,
No, okay,
that's the
so
TV
Sonic Boom, the
series
cartoon
Sonic
series,
Boom.
And I will come to the defense. Sonic Boom, the cartoon series, is apparently like actually really good. And I guess the game was a spin-off for the TV series, not a proper Sonic game. But
Wait,
gives
so
a fuck at that
the
point.
show is a spin-off of
There-
the game, and then they made a game that was a spin-off.
There
of
was a
the
cartoon
show.
called Sonic Boom. There are 3 Sonic Boom video games: Rise
Yeah.
of Lyric, Shattered Crystal, Fire and Ice. Those are the
Okay.
games.
Oh, of course, Fire and Ice.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Like the Trojan condoms.
One of those came out. Rise of Lyric came out on Wii U. Did another one come out on Wii U?
Are you
don't
forgetting
know.
about Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games?
Might be
That's
forgetting about
clearly
that.
it.
Yeah, that was
Basically,
the
the
big
point
one.
was I was curious how much they sold, and Sonic Boom sold 490,000 copies. About
That's
not that much.
Not good. Yeah.
and that year, Sega was primed to lose 13 billion yen
Woo.
for that year.
You're gonna say dollars.
Oh yeah, that sounded way worse until you
What?
said yen. I was like, oh, okay, well, still shit.
That
but-
equals apparently 109 million dollars.
yeah, that's a lot of money still.
Still pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Sonic Boom is the worst-selling Sonic game ever.
What's the best-selling one ever? Is it Sonic 2? It's probably Sonic 2.
That would be my assumption.
Mm-hmm.
Sonic and Knuckles. I don't know that.
That could be plausible as well.
Totally
I would
possible.
think it's got to be something on Genesis.
Yeah, it's one of the. It's either 2 or 3, I'm sure.
Let's see. Sonic
Need
the
the
Hedgehog
answers.
has sold 15 million and sits at number 1. That's the very first one.
The first game sold more.
15 million copies.
Damn.
Yeah, but it was a bundle title, though. Does that accurately
with the
reflect?
Genesis. Yeah, that's right.
Sonic 2 sold 6.6 million copies.
What?
Damn. That surprises me.
9 million people missing out.
Yeah, dude.
9 million.
It was the
Not
best.
for
it was the
resale.
best one. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, a little print right on the cartridge.
The Mario and Sonic series altogether sold 22.8 million.
For the longest time on that Sonic 1 cartridge, I read that as not for reals. And I thought it was a warning for children like me to make sure
real.
I understood. Listen, this isn't real life. You can't actually run at super speed and go in a full loop and survive
I
it.
tried, though.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I would run around my house so fast.
Did you have the speedy shoes?
I had shoes that were red, so I assumed that made me Sonic. I
think that's all it takes, actually.
Because the shoelaces are white, red and white means fast, I guess.
There you go. You got it.
And he's blue. He's the ultimate American patriot.
He is. Goodness, yeah, I didn't even think about that. This is like the true American experience, Sonic Mania. If you don't play this,
you're a terrorist.
If you can make
your feet into an infinity sign, that's how you know you're doing it right.
Nice. Okay. Anyway, here we go. Sonic Mania. It is available on consoles. I was very, very pleased as a Sonic. I mean, I'm not even really that big of a Sonic fan, honestly. It's just like those are the games I grew up playing, and I enjoy them. I think they're good. Like, I really do think the original Sonic games even hold up today as just like really solid platformers. But Sonic Mania is a great homage to that era, and I fully endorse it and recommend picking it up. It's on Switch, Xbox One, PS4, coming to PC on August 29th.
Very happy we get one more good Sonic game before we don't.
Before we all die.
Listen, man, I will be blown away if the Create Your Own Sonic OC game is going to be incredible.
That will be, yeah. Are they making like a Mario Maker Sonic game?
No, the Sonic Forces is you make your own custom Sonic character that you play through the game as your
Wouldn't
Sonic
answer if you can make pregnant ones. I don't know why you wouldn't tell me that.
I want to be like Tails, but his mouth is like a hairdryer. for reasons.
For reasons.
His name's actually Miles Prowler. I don't know if you knew that, but
I thought it was just Prower. Is it Prowler?
It might be Prower, actually. Yeah, it might be Prower. You're right. It's Prower because it's miles per hour.
MPH. It's supposed to be miles per hour.
That's hilarious.
I didn't even know that.
You didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Did you know that Myst, the game Myst, is called Myst because it's short for mystery?
Wow.
I thought it was because
I
of
know,
all the
it
mist.
blew my mind too.
I think it's because of the mist on the island. It's really misty island.
That's what I thought.
Huh.
Did you know that Octopussy is thusly named on account of
don't
her
even finish it.
tarantula-like vagina?
Oh. Good to know.
Didn't know that.
It's weird that they call her Octopussy.
Everybody's got a fact.
Yeah.
Now, if you make your own Sonic persona, are you actually a furry, or are you like a Sonic specific furry?
I don't know if they like qualify
Do
it.
you
I'm pretty sure they
categorize?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious.
Oh.
Out of respect for the people that watch this show that subscribe to that ideology, I abstain from mentioning it because I am unaware of the intricacies of the fandom.
Me either. I'm asking questions.
I'm going to side with that statement because I really just covered everything. Hey, Nick!
Hi.
Want to talk about Hellblade?
Yeah, sure. As long as I still got a little credibility left, I'll give it a shot. Hellblade, Senua Sacrifice, a brand new, this is Ninja Theory game. This is the people that did Twing Twang. What the hell's the name of it? Heavenly Blade? Heavenly Sword? Heavenly Sword. Twing Twang.
These are the Twing Twang people.
The crossbow.
Enslaved Odyssey to the West.
Right. Yeah, so you play as a lady warrior who is trying to find her partner's soul in Viking hell. That's sort of the general wrap-up premise to what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm alone in this, right? Nobody else has touched this game.
Yeah.
Okay. So it starts out with a very slow building tension, suspenseful moment. You riding in this like piece of timber, little boat. You're going along this path. and you hear these whispers in the sides of your ears, like stereo positionally coming from right, left, just whispering, she's gonna die, don't go, she'll never be able to do it, you'll never do it. And just kind of just builds as you slowly work your way down this very long, winding path of water, start passing dead bodies, stuff on spikes, just real gross, nasty stuff. And it just keeps building little whispers in your ears, and that is kind of the one unifying theme of the game. It's about mental illness, and specifically psychosis in this case. Someone that can hear voices or does hear voices throughout the whole game, that plays a role. They never stop for the entire game, which is an interesting prospect. From both the player's perspective and for storytelling, because they actually give you information sometimes too about your character's state of mind, about things going on. It's essentially a combination of puzzle solving, action, and a little bit of exploration, but very minor on that. And apologies, by the way, if I get any like psychological nomenclature incorrect here. I did play through the whole game, but I'm not like an expert on the topic, unfortunately. So you basically are trying to figure out how to get to hell at the beginning. And that is not obviously a thing that most people would know how to do, but you have connections and you figure out your way. There's some gates and you've got to fight some gods. And eventually you're able to open up a gate that allows you access to a bridge. And you just kind of keep going on this linear journey of both self-exploration and learning, as well as some combat. So I have some gripes about this game and some positives about this game. And ultimately, it landed me in like a 7 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10 kind of category. Ooh. So I didn't completely love it, but I also didn't think it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So to start off with a huge positive, it's one of the prettiest games I've ever played. Yeah. It's stunning looking, beautiful, all the way around. The texture work they did in this is just spectacular. Some of the audio work they did in this, also spectacular. And some of it very subtle as well. Doesn't mean that it's uniformly perfect in terms of level design or anything. Actually, a lot of it's fairly linear. Some of the puzzles I found to be a little bit frustrating. Not difficult, but just like overly obfuscated, sort of like artificially confusing kind of thing. Where you'd be in like a big forest room that's essentially just a very large box, and there's just 100 trees positioned in just such a way that you can't tell what direction forward is. That kind of thing. And then you've got to like find these perspective puzzle gates to open up your path forward. I was also being a little dense when I played through it, I admit. I think partially it was because I was talking at the time. I wasn't getting some super obvious stuff for a moment, and that's just kind of part and parcel with doing Let's Play kind of commentary stuff. But I don't know, I guess, in that respect, if these puzzles were actually at all difficult or if I was just being dense, but at the moment I perceived them to be not the most obvious or readily enjoyable. But that doesn't mean the whole game is bad or anything. That was just one portion of it. Another portion of it has to do with the storytelling, which I thought was actually pretty interesting. They delved pretty deeply into this character, and it's entirely a story about this character. Even though you go through a lot of trials and tribulations, you keep coming back to this being really about her. And the ending I actually found very satisfying, even though I don't think a lot of people will agree. I found it to be a cathartic ending. I'm not spoiling anything, by the way. Mm-hmm. It actually made me quite emotional, too, in a way that I didn't expect, considering I didn't feel especially attached to the character for the vast majority of the game, but at the end, it kind of came together for me in a way. I ended up watching the ending again with my girlfriend, and we kind of got into a pretty good discussion about it. And I do think there's some meat to it. So as superficial as some moments in the game might feel, ultimately, I did feel that it was cathartic. What else then? So
it has a very Horizon Zero Dawn look and feel to it from everything I'm seeing.
Well, in a lot of ways, though, it's a departure in that it's a fairly linear game. You have a couple branching paths that eventually come to the same hub, and then from there, it's mostly just straight to the end. There's just a few rooms that you can kind of diverge in, but it's largely just one room after another after another. Mm-hmm. My biggest complaint in the whole game, and this is a double-edged sword, if you'll pardon the sort of accidental pun, is the combat. The combat is ultimately pretty well done. It feels fairly good to play. However, it's incredibly repetitious. It's one of those situations where if you've ever played like one of those, what is it, the mobile games where you, it's like an Unreal Engine game, and you're just kind of looking at that cinematic presentation over and over again.
Infinity Blade?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Where you sort of got this like set piece fighting going on. It's not that it's that repetitious immediately, but after you've done it about 50 times, you realize a lot of the game is that they've sort of padded out content by just throwing gauntlets of enemies at you. And the combat does kind of come down to wait until you hear a voice say, it's behind you, then you parry, and much like Shadow of War, you always get the parry, and you always kill them pretty quickly after that. Although, as you get in further, the enemies get more and more difficult. There is an interesting mechanism, though, that I don't know if a lot of people even picked up on. As you go through the game, depending on your mind state and what is contextually happening, your will to fight and your will to live will be stronger, which actually results in you killing enemies faster sometimes.
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
It's subtle, but it does matter because in some cases, and there's also like an upgrade to your weapon, which helps a lot. But in some cases, it's incredibly boring going through some of these fights that are just, here's 8 or 10 of the same guy, wait, kill them, kill them. It's like, you get the idea. And they just keep padding it out as you get closer to the end, unfortunately. So that was maybe my biggest gripe, is that the game just felt a little too long. Like, it was about maybe a 6-hour game. I would have been happier if it was about a 4-hour game, which means taking out a lot of that combat and just being comfortable with the fact that the combat feels good enough in small doses that you can get away with that and it's not actually degrading the game at all. Just focus on the strength, which is ultimately the storytelling and that journey, that individual journey, and try not to get caught up too much in those things. And ultimately, I felt like the biggest downfall of the game was that they spent so much time working on the mental illness angle, and all of the research that they did, which I am hugely admiring of. I have a lot of respect that they spent so much time bringing in people to consult and get this right. They spent so much time on that, though, that they almost just shoehorned a lot of it into the game to have it in the game. I feel like it didn't always contribute. It was just part of that. So if you focus a little bit more on just the gameplay and the nuance to that and the storytelling, I think it could have been a 9 out of 10 game. As it is, it was a bit flawed.
So it really, like, you would rank it much higher if it just had a lot less to it. It sounds like if it just cut out probably, like 50% of what you consider the filler content, it'd be a lot better, huh? It's interesting.
And I do wonder, again, I know we kind of touched on this theme earlier, but I wonder if partially the reason, well, maybe the non-cynical reason that I could come up with why they had so much of that combat is maybe to put the player in the mind state that you're up against this like unending wall of conflict, to make the player feel as fatigued as the character might feel.
Right.
Although I wonder if I'm bending over backwards for that.
No, I think, like you say, like I hope they're not just shoehorning in the whole idea of this mental illness being so pervasive, because it sounds like they've at least got, like a functional gameplay mechanic around it,
they do.
As well as, it being the focal point, I assume, of the ending as well.
I want to clarify, I don't think that they shoehorned in the mental illness. It's a huge, major point of the plot. What I mean is they put maybe a bit too much emphasis on some of the very discrete effects of it, and trying to emulate them visually in a way that sometimes can be disorienting and sometimes not relevant.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying. Yeah, they couldn't really visually represent what they wanted to represent very well, so it just seems sort of forced, I guess.
It may have been just better as cutting room content in that case than... My opinion, obviously. I mean, I do seem to see some differing opinions about this game, but the one that I think is rather... all the way through is that the combat was way too repetitious ultimately. It does start out fun though, so it's not like it's bad, it's just too overused.
That's kind of like, I feel like a lot of the problems with a lot of Ninja Theory games, Enslaved Odyssey to the West was very, very similar, where the combat was satisfying, but they did it so much, and because it felt like padding between like the big set pieces and exploration and platforming bits, that it was fun for a while. By the end, you're like, it's literally the same thing over and over and over. They just gauntlet you enemies after enemies after enemies to pad the experience. Because if they didn't, the game would be like 3 hours instead of 6, which was the problem with their first game on the PS3, Heavenly Blade, that one. That game was like 3 hours? I remember beating it in a sitting in an afternoon. Like, it was super short.
Yeah. So it's a bit unfortunate because they were very close to having like an actual legit masterpiece on their hands, and then kind of undermine themselves a little bit, in my opinion. Doesn't mean it's not worth playing necessarily, but you should know going into it, it's a bit uncomfortable at times. The voices, like I said, never stop through the whole game. And they're stereo positional. So if you're wearing a headset, you're going to have whispering coming at every position for hours. So you have to be okay with that. And it's not a thing that feels good after a while. But I get why they did it.
Yeah, interesting. All right, well, there you go. Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, $30 on Steam, available right now.
I also recommend if you do play it, watch the documentary at the end. That actually filled me in on a lot of good info, too.
All right.
It's a little unlockable docutorial kind of 10-minute overview.
Sweet. All right. Last on the docket, Ryan, please tell me about West of Loathing, a slapstick comedy stick figure Wild West adventure role-playing game.
Loathing is a G-rated South Park, The Stick of Truth, essentially.
Yeah.
It is a spin-off, standalone RPG from the people who made Kingdom of Loathing, which is an MMO RPG with the same kind of stick figure aesthetic that's been running for like 15 years. It's been running for an outrageously long time.
2003, I think, is when it got released,
yeah,
quote unquote, or something. Yeah.
It is effectively that, but spun out into its own standalone game, and you play as a guy who is venturing west in like the late 19th century in a fictionalized version of the American frontier where mystical demonic cows have opened up a portal from bovine hell and are slowly recolonizing the United States, moving eastwards.
Yep.
So it's basically...
you don't need to ask why.
Okay.
And that's one of the things about West of Loathing, is that its tone is like extremely absurd, very silly, and things just sort of happen.
Yeah.
So like you are fighting like skeletons, or you're fighting the flaming heads of cows that you will come across over the course of the game, and the South Park comparison I still think is like it holds true. It's the Stick of Truth because the RPG mechanics are very, very simple and extremely solvable. Like, I don't know if I've just lucked into it, but I essentially have a build right now where about 4 or 5 hours into the game, I can kill any enemy in one hit, basically.
Wow.
And then beyond that, I also have, like, a character, like a companion that has a stun. So if it doesn't kill them in one hit, then they get stunned for a turn, and then they get killed on the second hit. So the actual RPG mechanic is very basic, simplistic, and not really the main draw. The main draw is definitely the tone of the game and the writing, and it's extremely dense in terms of its writing. It's like uniformly, consistently clever. And what's the other thing that's cool about it is that there's pseudo dungeons in the game. The dungeons all have like puzzles associated with them that are kind of unique. So there's one that is you're in a pickle factory, and there's kind of like some pseudo mathematical like balancing puzzles that you have to do in there. There's another one where you come across, these are like light spoilers, but there's another one where you come across a gang that is held up in like this, what I'll just call like a warehouse with 5 rooms. And every time you go into a room, you have to figure out which one of these like decoys is the real one. I don't know if you've done this one yet, Bear, but they all have like behavioral cues. So you go into one room and you're like, okay, this guy, I'm giving fake spoilers here basically, but like the scratch above the wall above this hat makes it look like this guy is like this is the real one, not the decoy. And then it gets like increasingly difficult. So it's really good. Like, I think first impressions, if you haven't played Kingdom of Loathing, which I haven't, you're going to look at it and be like, it's a stupid like little stick figure RPG. But it's really, at its core, a good and surprisingly deep and dense game. And then it has a layer of like the absurd, silly, consistent writing on top of it that really, I think, elevates this to the point where it could be one of the best games of the year, in my opinion.
It's extremely difficult to make a comedy game that relies almost entirely on the writing. And this is one of those games. Like, it's jazz punk level funny, which is another very difficult threshold to pass as well. It is successful at being a comedy game. It's successful at being a deep RPG, and it's very fun to play. It's satisfying to make progress. And like you said, like, there's just that giant hurdle you have to overcome of it's this weird stick figure comedy game, and like, I shouldn't enjoy it that much, but it's got the depth, it's got the presentation value, it's got the hook the loop of gameplay is satisfying enough. And like you said, like it's got those self-contained little puzzle elements too, where like each new area that you go to kind of has its own thing going on, where you have to like solve the mystery of this place, or put together all the different pieces that you've been finding throughout the map that all come together as one to unlock this route to get somewhere else. And it's all just so well done. Like, it's extremely fun to play, and it's weird how interested and invested I am in the story of West of Loathing, in that it is like the most standard Old West nonsense you can think of, but they've just made it so ridiculous that it's weirdly compelling and interesting. So yeah, it's just, man, I'm digging it. It's a great time, and the overwhelmingly positive reviews are not without their justification. It's awesome.
I mean, it's like I am notorious for mainlining my way through RPGs and not really reading dialogue and getting even beyond that. Like I think I'm very judgmental with games writing, where if people go like, oh well, hey, my name's Jessica, I was orphaned at a young age. I'm like, I don't care, Jessica. You're like, you don't mean anything to me.
You're like,
I can't get over the fact that you're still just a collection of pixels, and for you to just go tell me your life story right off the bat is stupid and would never happen. But anyway, in West of Loathing, I am like uniquely compelled to go to every side quest that they've set up, because it doesn't feel like filler content where you go to some place and then they're like, I need this, and then you go get it and they're like, thank you for spending your life force on getting this thing. Here's some experience that makes the rest of the game easier. Like, they're actually cleverly written encounters and dialogue. It's not just the fact that the dialogue is fun, because I think at some point that can start to wear a little thin. I get it, you're very clever, but like enough of the puzzles have unique elements to them, or the dungeons have unique elements to them, and beyond that, it subverts your expectations narratively in ways that I don't necessarily want to spoil. But the story is more than meets the eye at first glance. And I'll give an example that's not super spoilery, but effectively, like, there's a point, if you take a certain companion, there's a companion you have that has a vendetta against cows, because cows have caused
kill
trauma.
their family.
Yes, okay. Cows kill their family.
Yeah, it's pretty early.
She finds like all these quests that have to do with ranches. So ranches where cow farmers lived, you would go and investigate and be like, okay, so you go to one early in the game and you read this girl's diary, and she starts talking about how like she's befriended this imaginary friend who is a doll. That speaks to her in like a really sinister tone and is like, you have to come to this tea party with me. So it seems like at first you're like, okay, this is just kind of fun flavor text, but you learn if you actually get your mysticality stat high enough, you can actually open this chest and converse with the doll yourself, and this demonic doll will start giving you like Dark Brotherhood quests that you can actually go on yourself, and then you can choose what you can do from that point onwards. I won't spoil anything.
There's an alternative to that quest line as well if you choose something different with the doll that I am currently undertaking. So we'll see what's going on there as well.
Is your doll pleased with you, or
she's
unpleased?
Unhappy?
I'm on the same boat where I've laid the seed of like, I accidentally made this doll very upset with me, and she said something quite menacing, and now I'm perturbed.
Now there's just that cloud of doom hanging above us for the entire playthrough.
Where I'm like,
now.
One day this doll will kill me. But so yeah,
how many Wild West puns have you made in your
zero
series?
that
straight up
in
like,
my series?
Yeah, come on.
Oh well, yeah.
Maybe one.
I've just been doing this the whole time and having a right good time with it. But I think the phrase "there's more than meets the eye" is just very it's a blanket statement that can easily cover just about every element of this, from like, how good is this story? Way better than you'd expect. How deep are the RPG mechanics? Way deeper than you'd expect. Like, how fun is it to play? I can't explain why I want to keep going, but I do. And like, it's like you said, like, it's not just filler content. There's places I want to go see what's going on in Cowpoke Ranch or the Dave Yard or whatever the fuck, like, there's all these really fun, interesting little side bits that are just so seamlessly interwoven into everything that it makes it super enjoyable. So yeah, there's just super high praise for this one. West of Loathing, great time. $10.99 for what I think is like an 8 to 10 hour RPG. So yeah, good stuff.
I really like the place I want to leave this is that this is not like, $10 for 8 hours of distraction. It's like you're paying $10 for what is actually like something that I think will stick with you, if not in like an emotional way, at least in a like, what they did there was really clever sort of way. It's not just like you can play this for 10 hours. You're actually, I think, going to be, I wouldn't say upset again, but you're going to be disappointed when it's over.
That's a good way to say it, yeah. Cool. There we go. West of Loathing, $10.99, just came out last week. And that, I believe, will take us into everybody's favorite segment. It's Ask Roundtable. Ask Roundtable, the weekly segment. That's where everybody goes, woohoo! Ask Roundtable, yeah! We love that segment. We're the co-hosts. Ask Roundtable is the weekly segment where you send your questions into roundtableyt@gmail.com. We do our best to answer this. And this week's question comes from Jerry. Hey, Jerry. Thanks for watching the show. He says, are there any seminal or landmark moments in gaming that you missed out on due to hardware restrictions, lack of funds, or just plain old not being into video games at the time, and you wish you could have been there for them? An example would be missing the launch of a huge game like WoW or the first wave of really popular online shooters. Thank you very much, Jerry, for the recommendation. Or for the question, rather. Seminal or landmark moments in gaming that you missed out on for whatever reason.
I missed out on the launch of Half-Life 2.
Oh, poor guy.
I bought it, and my PC just couldn't run it, and I didn't play it for like 5 to like X number of years later. I had it, and then I couldn't play it.
And you probably redeemed it on Steam and couldn't return it then, right?
No, I bought it. I bought a physical copy at Target.
Yeah, but they still had that was the first game that required Steam DRM authorization.
That's true. Yeah, so you're probably right. It's been so long. But yeah, I think it's the only thing I've really missed. Trying to think if I missed out on anything else, but it's the only one that comes to mind.
I've mentioned this many, many, many times, but like my first foray into competitive gaming was with the Halo 1 demo on the Macintosh, and that was that just kind of embodies how many opportunities I missed out on, as that was like my primary gaming device at the time. Was this old? I don't think it was the colorful ones. I think I might have tried to play on like the raspberry, blueberry iMacs back in the day. You remember those things?
I had a lime green one myself.
And then it was like the Mac after that, I believe, was the one that we had for a long time, and may actually still be a computer that my parents use to this day. But that was, it was about that time that I bought my 360 in Halo 2, and then I stopped missing out. Basically, from that point forward, I decided, let's put all my money into never missing out on these experiences ever again. You guys have a similar, just go ahead and pick one, I guess, that you wish you could have played way back in the day, like if you could have chosen to be there for the hype wave at the start. Anything in particular?
I've always been pretty lucky in that respect. There's not been too much that I missed out on. I kind of held out, and this is a reverse story in a way, because I didn't buy an Xbox One for almost the entire Xbox One cycle, and then I did, and then I really didn't need to. I probably just could have not done that.
Wait, like the original Xbox or the...
No, the Xbox One, the newest Xbox console. I could have just never bought one. I mostly wanted it for Killer Instinct.
I traded in my 360, which I wish I had still, honestly, for that Xbox One that was meant to be a Master Chief Collection machine and never became that. Ever, ever, ever.
I missed, like, pretty much everything that came out between 2006 and 2010 that wasn't Guitar Hero or Rock Band, because I was just in college. So
that's all you did?
I played predominantly, like 500 hours of Rock Bands 1 through 3, and then like janky shit on the Wii, plus Super Smash Brothers on N64 and Wii.
Nice.
So, and in a way, that's kind of like what the substreams have been doing, with a few exceptions, for like the past 2 years, is going back to games like Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3.
All of the Bethesda games.
All that stuff you missed.
Yeah, Skyrim. I guess it's a little later, but BioShock.
Yeah.
But I really feel like I missed out on. There is like a gap in my knowledge from, and unfortunately it overlaps with Nick's Weird Games a lot. But from like 2006 to 2009, I just like didn't really play that much. And the other one would be that I never owned a PS3, so anything that came out there is like. That's why I have like no at all emotional connection to like Uncharted or Killzone games past Killzone 1 or anything like that. Resistance, for example. So, like, I'm just not really... I don't have a shared history with those, basically.
I think you could get down with Uncharted, actually. The cutscenes are pretty campy. I think you'd have a good time making fun of them.
That's one I've been meaning to maybe eventually go back and play through too. I feel like it's such a staple franchise at this point. I think I owe it to myself.
Uncharted came around at a time where Tomb Raider was like shitting itself.
Yes, it was the saving grace, right? Yeah.
I thought Underworld was actually not terrible. I don't know. They were bad, but they were like a different kind of bad than I guess people wanted them to be.
Well, now they're really good, so it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, they've done a 180. I guess like for my final like what I missed out on is I kind of wish I was a PC gamer when I was like, you know, like between 10 and like 13, because I was blown away by like Mass Effect and the kinds of games that gave you choice in your RPG, and I never really came across that on console RPGs very often, if at all. But apparently, like, Baldur's Gate 1, 2, and all that stuff was built on choice. And, like, if I had that when I was a kid and had those types of RPGs growing up, that would have blown my mind.
Yeah.
But that's my excuse, I guess, like yours do Nick's Weird Games and whatnot. Is like, that's my Judge Math's excuse.
Yeah.
Is old PC games just to play those.
Word. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jerry, for the question. If you got questions, send them on over. roundtableyt@gmail.com. We'll try to answer them. Jerry even had, I missed this when I was reading the email. He had a great Nick's Weird Games theme song recommendation. We might have to bring this back. Either Brass Monkey or Fight for Your Right by the Beastie Boys. Those would be, I think, pretty easy to get one of those ones going. You don't have to do it now. Don't let me pressure you here because I know we had something. But anyway, future consideration. Roundtableyt@gmail.com if you've got yourself an Ask Roundtable question. That'll take us into everybody's favorite segment. After their favorite segment, it's Nick's Weird Games. I've asked you to hit us with that home improvement theme. Or at least the last part of it, for the most part.
Okay. Do you think that Nick's new weird game is Japanese? I had 2 hours to prepare that. I still overran it by 1 syllable.
Oh, well...
That's a really good ooh-ah.
That was a good Tim Allen.
Tim Allen's in the news. I got to practice, man.
Tim Allen is on Twitter again.
Old news.
He's like, but if they're humans, why are they still?
If I can just...
PS4s exist. Why are there still PS3s?
That's
right.
Yeah.
Nice. Don't they all disappear?
Can we call those Allenisms? That's an Allenism right there.
Does he have that many?
Well, an Allenism is actually just when there is an answer to your question, but rather than search for it, you choose to remain publicly willfully ignorant for reasons that, I don't know, maybe are too complex for me to understand.
Followed up with
Yeah.
I have to deprogram myself from seeing "dude, just shut up" as someone insulting me.
Yeah.
It's really hard to not think that's coming to me, but it's a meme.
Just my instant reaction was like, "You don't know anything. Just be quiet. It's okay to just be wrong."
He doesn't even tweet that much, is the thing. He tweets like once a month, and he felt obligated to send that one out.
Wasted your monthly tweet on ignorance. You.
Right.
I wonder if he was just sitting in his living room, bored because his bad sitcom got canceled.
And he's just thinking about it. He's like, wait, no, this
up.
does make sense. Wait, why are there still... I have to tweet!
How was no one thought of this before? All right. Nick's Weird Games. This is a segment.
Oh, I thought you were going to explain what the segment was. Oh. Okay. I have a game, and you're going to guess what it is, and you're going to hide your chats. Because probably there are still some people who just find the show for the first time. That's what we hope anyway,
I think so, yeah. Maybe one or two
explaining.
of them. Mm-hmm.
I hope so, because that's how we continue to do this.
We'll see.
Anyway. All right. Today's game is a PS2 game, because I still have a couple of those left, if you can believe it.
Oh, good.
Right in that right spot where Ryan didn't play the games that he mentioned. Developed by Gustco Limited.
Gustco.
Published in North America by NIS America.
Okay, I know them.
And in Europe by Koei.
All right. Mm-hmm.
And in Japan, self-published by Gustco.
Okay.
We're talking a release date in the U.S. of late June 2005. And you want to take a stab at the genre I bet you can get it.
RPG?
You got it.
Whoa! All right.
Really mixing it up here.
Really?
Single player only on this one.
Okay.
All right. So this game is set in the world of Regelzine.
Regelzine.
Which is just a fun word to say. Okay, wars and internal disputes has separated the kingdom of Esvore. What word did I just? Esvore. Esvore. And the area of South Esvore where the game takes place is no longer under the control of King Slaith. All right, so the functional, most important bit of this is it's got a very impactful synthesis system to it, where you can create items out of other items.
Okay.
You are a student of a particular genre of science/magic, and you study that science/magic as you improve yourself and try to make a difference in the world. The game contains, contains 6 playable characters. 3 characters can be in a battle party, with the player free to switch others in and out at any time. There are a shitload of characters in this.
No idea, dude. This is...
Yeah, I don't know. Those names did not ring a bell at all.
Gustco?
Yeah, I've never heard of Gustco. I know NIS, but...
Game was rather well received. Actually, very well received in a few cases. Game rankings, 77%. Metacritic, 74 out of 100. Eurogamer gave it an 8. GameSpot gave it a 7.2. So, like, pretty good review scores across the board. Console Obsession gave it a 9 out of 10, by the way.
Man.
Console Obsession knows.
They've been known for their overreaching reviews over there.
You're going to have to... I got nothing, man. I don't know what the hell this game is at all. What do you got?
It's got a weird name, too, like, not an obvious name.
Dude, I've looked up Gustco, and I'm like, even being able to look at this list, I don't think I could get it. They've got quite the arsenal.
Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more bits off the back, and then we'll call it. So it's rated T, fantasy, violence, mild language, suggestive themes, use of alcohol, tobacco. In the age of peace and harmony, the power of evil is lurking in the shadows. The progeny of the dying art of alchemy must rise to defend all that there is. Together with the forces of mana, an alliance of fate must decide the destiny of the entire world. Now that I read these back as an older person, I'm like, man, this is such a template. Every single word is just a template.
It's Mad Libs for video game descriptions.
Kate played a game like this in last month on her stream, where she was like a girl alchemist maintaining a shop.
Is it Atelier Marie, the Alchemist of Salberg?
No.
Oh, damn it.
Extract elemental powers from field objects for your alchemy experiments. Use the power of mana to create over 300 different items. 400 events. 400 events can occur, resulting in your actions or resulting from your actions.
Dog. What do you got?
Yeah, this is no chance in hell.
I was trying to give you something specific to the actual game because it's a series on top of it. And I guess the best I could really do is just that bit about the kingdom of Esvore and King Slaith.
Is it an Atelier game?
Yeah.
There's like 80.
I think it's actually what Kate played one of these last month. Was you're an alchemist in I think she played Atelier Iris something or other.
Most recently on PlayStation 3 was playing a game called Atelier Sophie.
That's what it was.
Yeah, it's a long-running series. I think there's at least 5 titles in it now.
Oh, there's many more.
Many more than 5.
More
okay,
than
not even counting mobile and handheld.
Ruka.
Oh, Ruka. Okay, this one is the original though. The first one in the series, Atelier Iris, Eternal Mana. There's the cover for you if you want. Look,
is that Atelier? I feel like that's pronounced Atelier, isn't it?
Sure.
I don't know.
Atelier Iris, exactly.
All right.
I don't really know how to pronounce it properly, but I own 3 of them.
Damn.
So that's something.
Dude, yeah, like, look at this Gustco developed games list. Like, I swear to God, there's actually 80 Atelier Marie games. Like, it's wild.
People love alchemy.
Or no, it's just Atelier, I guess, or however the hell you pronounce that word. But, yeah,
I imagine it's Atelier and then the name of the protagonist is the formula they go with.
Okay.
So that way they can make infinite spin-offs if they really want.
Cool. Man, yeah, that was a Nick's weird game. Absolutely.
It certainly was.
Goodness. Well, hey, everybody. That'll do it for yet another episode of Roundtable Live, episode 98. My God. That triple-digit episode is just, it's screaming around the corner, and I am not ready for it, but I'm trying to be. But thank you very much for watching all the same. We really appreciate y'all being here. Thank you very much to those of you watching here on twitch.tv/Roundtable Podcast. We'll, of course, be live next week. We will be next week, right? I believe it next week we should be here, yes. Yeah. Here on Fridays at 3 o'clock Pacific. You can also catch the VOD over on the YouTube channels, youtube.com/BaerTaffy, Rock Lee Smile, and Maths Games. Twitter.com/RoundtablePC is where you can catch the Twitter updates when we go live. And you can support us over on patreon.com/roundtable as well. I want to send a big thank you to those Patreon supporters, which include but are not limited to, as soon as I get this list up, here we go. It is Julian Avelsgaard, Jonathan Graham, Scotty119, Ricky Grist, James P., Peter Sunnison, Ellis Spice, John Kalchik, O. Thomas Games BR, Jakar Sampson with a dance number, Kolnar Senua, Jamie Tinsley, Joseph Boss, Penn Gillette, Michael Bush Larson, Talks to Wald, TJ Majesty, Chaos, Never Gonna Tell a Lie and Hurt You Theorist, Colby Klein, Greenlight, Oren Saltzman, Eric Schooley, Brizzlebrit, Positron, Miscare, Mediocrities, Justin Smurfett, Logan Bray. Thank you very much, my friends, for the support over there on patreon.com/roundtable. I want to try to get the list of subscribers here from the stream as well. Thank you very much to Devastating Wake for the resubscription, Shanus, Meat General, Benson and Hodges, Shrill Cascade, Mest Fender, Mr. Forrest, Spacier Name, I'm Fluffy, Mike 2084, Tech, Tight Toe, Quicken, Neck You Soul, Quick. Oh, wait, those are repeats. There we go. Blah Wolpate, Pulse Lane, and M. Huer, I believe, is our subs over on Twitch as well. Thank you guys very much for supporting the show. We genuinely do appreciate it, and we will be back next week. Thank you, Skvalp, as well. Right at the end there. I can't pronounce your name, buddy. I'm sorry. That's just a series of consonants.
Skvalp
does not work in my language.
Every so often, I read one of those Twitch names, like I cannot process that word.
No chance. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. We'll be back next week. Thank you all for watching. See you then. Goodbye.
Later, everybody.